Trustees, Committee of the Whole meeting of October 16th, 2023. Clerk Konecki, please call the roll.
Ms. Trustee Alfano?
Here.
Trustee Cordova?
Here.
Trustee Corkery? Trustee Kosar? Trustee Kumar? Trustee Patrick?
Here.
President Casone.
Here. And we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and item 3A tonight is a 2024 budget workshop. It's getting that time getting a village budget together, and I will turn this over to Village Manager Matt Harline.
I'm just going to say a couple things before I turn it over to our Finance Director, Chuck Howard. This is a first pass. This gives you a first look at the budget. There are probably, there could be errors. There are definitely chance to make changes. This is a first look at some of the projects that we're planning for the future year, some of the things that have been accomplished over the past years, and it's your first chance to give input formally on what you guys want to see more of, less of, that sort of thing. So as we go through the budget, this is about a month earlier than we did this last time. So we're a little bit ahead of where we were last year. So that gives us more time to do more thinking, and we'll probably make it even, next year will be even a better process when we go through strategic planning, get our goals set out, and have a whole year to think through what it is that's most important, because there are going to be some tough choices. Michael's going to talk about some of them when it comes to what we put money towards. For instance, the cost of doing a grade separation project. We're going to have to start thinking about how serious we are now, because if we apply for grant funds, which we have in the preliminary draft, for money to do the phase 1 engineering, we're kind of saying, if you're going to give us federal grant money, we're serious about this, and we're going to proceed towards some kind of overpass, underpass situation on one of the different possible roads. And we have some data to tell us where to go with that. So that's just one example. But this is, again, first pass. It's meant to be a chance for questions and answers. So don't hesitate to stop any of the department heads when we're going through if you have some questions. And for Trustees Alfano, well, you're not picking that up? No, okay. For Trustees Alfano and Cordova, this is your first pass through. There are no questions that aren't worth asking, even if it seems like it's basics about what the different funds mean. Don't hesitate to ask. We'll make sure it. I hate to say there are no stupid questions, but I'm confident neither one of you will ask one. Right. So, with that, I will turn it over to our Finance Director, Chuck Howard.
I think this is on. I'm not sure. If you can't hear me, I'll pick up that one. I think the first page in our presentation, it highlights this process and what we go through and what it really means. The GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, presents awards for budget presentations, and we've won and been part of their presentation process for a long time. I mean, 29 years is quite a thing to think about when you talk about budgeting, and all the people who've come and gone in this process, and they've maintained that consistency over the budget process to get us in the award presentation. Well, what is a budget? What is it? A budget is a plan. It's a finance, operating, planning, communication tool, and it's different from accounting. Accounting, of course, is a set of rules and the underlying framework for recording the financial activities of the village. We're guided by a number of sources, GASB, the Government Accounting Standards Board, guidance from our auditors, our peers, the state legislature, and it's a guide that we use to measure us in providing services on a consistent basis. So it's a good process, it's a complete process, and it's a process fraught with a lot of challenges, not the least of which is balancing revenues and expenses as costs increase greater than our ability to meet them. So it's difficult finding additional revenue sources while we maintain quality services, and this framework helps us prioritize and, in the short term, decide exactly what it is we need to do. What is a budget process? Well, we've started the process. The departments have submitted their budgets, their expense budgets. We've had discussions with the departments. The village manager has taken a look at those. We've had some initial discussions, and we've put together some revenue projections, and all of that's come together in the document that's presented to you. Again, this is very early, as the manager has said, earlier than we have done it before, at least in my tenure here. And it's good, because we've got a lot of time to work through a lot of these things and to bring them around to what you want to see in the short term. So, our calendar, again, the first two steps are underway. This workshop here, we will again finalize this and put it in a form that will be available online in November. We'll also have a public hearing and the first reading of our budget ordinance in December. By the 18th of December, which seems far away, but it's really not, we will adopt a budget and begin our fiscal year January of 24. Sorry about the next one, it's kind of an eye chart, but it gets into the details of what the dates are that, oh, that's good, that are upcoming for us, and how we go through this, and the need really to be on top of this so that we're early and can file our documents, and you'll see that in a subsequent slide or two with the county. Our budget timeline is there. Again, it's just a different format to show you what we're going to do with the budget, where it falls, and what the measurement points are in the budget. And the next slide tells you what documents that we need to get processed and filed with the county clerk. Their certificate of budget and appropriations ordinances, the estimated revenue by source, our levy, the certification of the levy, truth in taxation if we were to exceed the 5% that requires that, then we would publish that, and all of those things need to be done with the county. So you'll see that there are a lot of things to do. It involves a lot of people, and a lot of staff, and a lot of staff time. Just a slide here on the different types of funds. Government funds, which are mostly what we look at here, the tax-supported funds. The business-type funds are the ones that you think almost out in the private sector, water and sewer, where there's a fee directly related to a particular department. So those funds have both expense and operational funds, so those are recorded and accounted for a little bit differently than governmental funds. Just looking at some of those governmental funds, the operating funds, you'll see the general funds, our main operating account, and that's the one we focus most of our efforts on. The TIF funds, it says 5, actually there are 4, maybe to be 5. Where only the spending can only occur inside the TIF district for those projects that we determine, funded by that tax increment. I know we've had a lot of discussions about tax increment, and I think everybody's kind of aware of how that kind of works and what we can do in the TIF funds. MFT for street maintenance, by the state disbursement of those funds. Hotel motel for tourist attraction. NESDA, the special recreation area for specific projects. We have access to some of those funds. I know for some park projects, we're accessing some of those. The rec fund, funded by the levy, parks also. Debt service, we specifically levy for our debt service. And then we keep a little bit of cash there for contingencies, and it's something, if something catastrophic were to happen in a day, we don't have to worry about affecting our general fund balance over much. There's a government funds capital slide here. You can take a look at that. Most of those funds relate to equipment and buildings and things that are long-term for us. Account for those in these capital-type funds, and usually these are the big-ticket things that we...
On some of these, the other capital equipment, land and building improvement, when we move into the new software, the land and building improvement and other capital for general fund, they don't have a specific, I'm saying equipment, they don't have a specific revenue source associated with them. We may look to combine them into just a corporate or general fund capital account, and then use the other numbers in the account codes to distinguish between land and building purchases from building improvement purchases, from equipment and vehicle purchases, which would reduce the number of funds, something that GASB recommends. I'm sure that there were some reasons to create them, but there are other and better ways probably to track them. So that might change as we move into the new software, and there might be some other small changes to the chart of accounts. It actually probably will make the budget easier to understand. And sorry for the interruption, sir.
Quick question for you, Chuck. Like the DUI fees and the drug control fees, the funds from that are specific to what they have to be used. Is that a state mandate, or is that just what we mandate ourselves?
That is a mandate of the funds collected, yes.
Okay.
We don't have much choice in that. I know we've had some discussion on whether some of the legal type fees can be charged to those funds, and it's always a discussion, but they're very much regulated.
Good, thank you.
And then going on, we'll talk about some business-type funds, and as I kind of alluded to earlier, there are some funds that operate sort of, as enterprise funds, and sort of as in the private sector, sort of such as water, wastewater, and the pool. It's a fee-based fund, and we account for those in separate funds so that we can look and track what's going on, and the revenues and expenses related to these types of funds are accounted for in their fund, so we can see how we're doing based on these types of funds and their revenue sources. We always are concerned about these fee-based items, because a lot of them, as we know with water, we don't have a lot of choice in how we apply that. We can't, and we probably wouldn't unilaterally raise rates. These rates come at us from the county and from other sources. So this is kind of the impact of the city of Chicago and its dealings to us. So we have to work through some of that.
I have a question. So with the governmental funds, the operating funds, you have recreation, there's recreation, but then the swimming pool is separate?
Because it operates on a fee basis. It was something, and it doesn't have to be there. I think when our fund balance, or our fund structure was set up, somebody wanted to know if we're, recreation and parks really are funds that operate as governmental, but this one specific revenue source, I think, was one that they wanted to take a look at to see, again, and this is one place where we can affect rates.
The swimming pool cannot operate without some subsidy from the swimming pool can't operate with without some subsidy right now from the general fund. That's not unusual.
Yeah.
Pools don't usually make money, but they're a an asset to a community, obviously. So whether or not that is set up as it's continued as a true enterprise fund, or if it's blended into a general corporate fund in the future. So question is this, something we can discuss, but that's the way it's been set up. That's the way we operate it now.
I am presuming probably as we open up our community center, that is also probably a similar situation to the pool in terms of pricing and stuff. So maybe we should have a rolled up fund somewhere, either in the general fund or here, that the swimming pool, everything is kind of conglomerated into one package of line items.
That certainly is something we can do, and something that...
Just so those line items stay together, but they could be in the general fund. It doesn't matter exactly where they are, so much as that we have the information separately on some of them, and they're still collecting that information.
And I think it's good to look at things together that are fee-based.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of them.
Yeah, so keeping them separate is fine, I think, from a perspective, but if they need to go in the general fund and be a line item in the general fund, I personally think that's okay too. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't look like a capital project thing, but at the same time, I think maybe the reason the swimming pool is under capital projects is from a collection mechanism, maybe on the other side.
Just to be clear, the swimming pool is its own separate fund, so it has both capital and it has operating and it has revenue
Because
sources.
I think it has revenue sources that we want to probably increase over time in some way or form, given the age of this pool. There's not a clear-cut process for that, and I think maybe that's why it's been sitting separate for a while.
I think too, it was just a way to see if the pool was making money or how much money, transfer funds from the general fund had to go in there.
Yeah.
It's more of accounting with that.
Yeah, but I think also it's not a bad idea to have a separate, similar line item once we get to have the community center, because that's another thing that, is going to have revenue sources and also expense.
And it will be a good thing for those locations, for us to know from a budget standpoint, what that transfer is going to be to support that activity. So it's good accounting, I think, to perhaps consider these types of things. Budget snapshot, revenues by source. These may not be current to what you all have there, but it's a good graphic for what is a source of our revenues. You'll see property tax, charges for services, sales tax. Things are sort of even here. Property tax and charges for services are our two biggest sources. And sales tax is another big source. That is one of the places I think that we can expect to see some enhancements as new businesses come and the growth occurs in Villa Park. So it's a nice balanced thing. Nothing in our mix is weighted to really one thing to really impact us if it were affected. So it's a nice mix. Expenditures by fund, you can see the biggest expenditures out of our general fund, and we expect that. Street improvements, wastewater, water, those business type accounts are big expenditure ones, but the general account is where we really do most of our work expenditures outside of those capital activities that we engage in. So. And this is just kind of a snapshot. We're just getting started. Hopefully it gives everybody a feel for what we are, and what you'll hear after this, a feel for how we are structured, and give some guidance to us as we go in the planning phase for 2024. So I think with that, please.
Those two graphs, if it's possible, can someone send me the Excel? Because I
will
want
send.
percentages instead of numbers, because that would give me a better feel of what's going on.
We'll get that right out in our next iteration.
If you can do that, please, thank you.
I'm going to talk to some of the priorities.
Some of oh, okay.
Priorities.
Oh, I see. I didn't switch my slide. Yeah. So some of the items that, let's see if that, okay. Some of the items from last year, these are all from the, carried over from last year. And the abbreviation or acronym from the beginning is, of course, from the 2019 strategic goals. STRG is short-term routine goals. STCG is short-term complex. LTRG is long-term routine, and then LTCG is long-term complex. So we're going to continue to work on IT to support efficiency and customer service with the BSA contract, which has been signed, and we'll be getting started and implementing that software, and also with customer relationship management software. We've done some other things. We've begun to implement a time and attendance software, which the total cost to implement was about 10 grand with the equipment for new time clocks, et cetera. And the annual cost is like 2-3 grand, something like that. Very inexpensive, but will save a tremendous amount of time for getting payroll into the system. Training budget continues at a higher rate from the previous year, and this year we're starting the academy. Greater emphasis on replacing and maintaining street trees, and we'll get to that later. Continued aggressive infrastructure upgrades, sewer separation, water mains. In fact, if we get all the grants and the things that we're hoping to do right now, the proposed expenditures in the wastewater capital and enterprise funds combined would be over $15 million, but that's assuming we get some grant funds, and again, they'll be talked about later. We more money for sidewalks again. We've also put more sidewalk money embedded in projects like on Monterey, and we've added a little bit more sidewalk repair in the Cornell Street repair, so that's something we're doing more. It has changed over the last 2 or 3 years. It already started before I got here, but we've continued to be much more aggressive in repaving and fixing the ADA connections at the ADA ramps, where we are doing street overlays to make sure that we're improving the sidewalks as we go along and improve streets. The Monterey project, there was no request for cost sharing for those sidewalks, kind of going along with the kind of as a keeping things I'm just trying to come up with a very common word, and it's getting stuck. For all the inconvenience, that's the word, inconvenience of tearing up the street and having it in disrepair for about a year, all those sidewalks that were repaired were done at 100% of in the cost of the project. And considering the total cost of the project, the sidewalks were a rather minor addition. Funds for the railroad grade separation study, that is completed. There'll be more to do. The new fire engine re-chassis of the ambulance and ambulance payment, those are all still in progress. Funds for the comprehensive plan update, that is also in progress. So these are things that we had before you last year and showing you the progress on those. So we've gotten some of the things and some of these done, and some of them continue. For this year, new initiatives and expected outcomes. We're going to construct and open the recreation center. I think you guys are excited about that a little bit. Strategic planning initiative with the board to be 5 years, and that's the cycle that we've been on to update that strategic plan. Initiate the leadership Academy, initiate the St. Charles Road Commercial Corridor TIF, launch customer service software, initiate vehicle lease program. So these are some new things that we're working on that are trying to achieve some of our goals. Looking back at the 2019 strategic plan, and again, I said this last year, but I'm reminding you again this year. We had a lot of new members in our leadership team, and it's nice to have the team with relatively minor changes this year, and I think we've built a really good collaborative spirit, but there have been some things that have taken longer because of the number of new positions. Particularly, that's part of the reason why it took so long to get the audit completed. And with this next year, we should see fewer of those kinds of adjustments have to be made, and things should fall on schedule a lot better. So with that, that's what I had to say. The other thing, I guess I've already talked to you a little bit about that. We have a combining page on page 1 and 2 of the document we handed out today. That's still early in the process, but it shows that our general fund balance is strong, and we have the ability we have some money that we can spend to get some projects done. We'll refine that number a lot, and also we'll make sure that that we are taking into account that we need to bring, make sure that all of the street improvement and stormwater buyout, and that those funds are all in the black by the end of the year, because for instance, particularly the equipment replacement, land and building improvements, if those show a negative, it's really a deduct from the general fund balance, and so those should be zeroed out with funds from the general fund, or what we're showing you there is a bit of a obfuscation, because those don't have their own fund sources like the TIFs and NESRA and MFT, et cetera. Those all have dedicated revenue sources. So for those funds, we have to make sure that they at least zero out, although they look like they're all going to be in the black this year. So we've got a lot of work to do between now and December 18th, but I'll turn it back over to the rest of the department heads to finish up I guess I would got one question.
Under STRG 6, which is the tree planting, what number in the budget is that? Like forestry is 10, 525, so forth?
Do you want to get that now, or can we cover that when Public Works?
You can get that later. I was just
Yeah. Well,
trace them down the strategic plans. I'll go through it when.
Right. No, and it is,
and the sidewalk one too.
Michael is aware that Mr. Director Guerra is aware that that's something that is a passion and a priority for this board, and we've got some numbers. We're still not doing total replacement, but we're working towards that, and we'll give you some more information when we get down to the Public Works Department. So. You're up.
There it is. Evening. All right. Oh. Hold on. On the thin one, page 16. Pursues. All right. So I got a couple slides about community and economic development. So first off is the org chart, which if you were looking at the 2023, which we presented, this is the 2024 version. It looks different. We've had some changes over the last year, some managerial changes. So what we've proposed here reflects the proposed budget, which is the phrase that I like to call right-sizing the department. We had that conversation last year with the introduction of a planner position. Here is creating two sort of divisions, one for building and inspections led by an inspection supervisor, and then the creation of the deputy director position, which helps backfill some of the duties that were assigned to a previous position. Again, on here is contractual plan review and contractual inspections. Those are outside, but I have a slide on that a little bit further. But this is the proposed 2024 org chart, which I think will last us for a while. This is getting us really stinking close to what our village needs to serve our residents for all the functions community and economic development do. So some of the goals, not all, the narrative will explain the majority of it, but these are the top of my list, if you will. Right now, the website for community development and economic development are separate, and they're also dated. They go to documents that are no longer useful. There's information up there that's stagnant. The idea is to take it from a customer service approach. If I'm a resident and I need to apply for a permit, how do I easily get there? Because right now you can't. And I understand that, and that's why next year we're going to tackle that thing, work with administration and Donnie and get that thing tightened up. Create a business list. I've talked about this in the past. We do not have a cohesive list of all the businesses, which includes all the addresses of businesses in town. I don't think that's acceptable, and so I want to accomplish that next year. Per my cow presentation, which we mentioned this, research and map all of our zoning, the variations, the special uses, the planned developments, and I'm including the annexation agreements and development agreements. Annexation agreements have a 20-year life, something that happened before majority of us were even on staff here. I don't know where that is. So map all that, including all of our redevelopment agreements, which have in perpetuity. Continue to work through our public records and retention. Our department has not filed a public retention. This is what documents we need to keep, what documents we can shred. We're going through our old files right now, digitizing what's necessary in preparation of a filing either this, it's probably going to be spring, but I was shooting for this year. But there's 40 years worth of documents that we've been sitting on that aren't really cataloged, and I can't look into a modern software today. So we're working on digitizing records to keep in perpetuity and then shred the rest, but that requires state action. So we're going through that right now. Draft additional zoning text amendments. Been in front of you guys a couple times saying there's some nuance, and I'm trying to fix that. If I have trouble understanding what the code means, the public has even harder time figuring it out. So I want to streamline a couple sections. We've talked about a few of those sections, and so that'll be maybe 2 or 3 text amendments next year, one chunk at a time as things go. As part of right-sizing the department, on the previous slide was the creation of the deputy director position to backfill additional responsibilities. Work with BSNA, as Matt just pointed out, we are under contract now and implementing that enterprise software. The permitting function will be part of that software. It will no longer be a standalone software, which it is currently. So all permitting will actually be in line with one cohesive address base, one cohesive property data. You got a water bill, you got a building permit, you got a code enforcement violation, all under one thing. So the community and economic development function on that is large. Usually it starts with an address audit. So we'll be spending some significant time next year on getting that ready to roll. Investigate the potential for a hoarding task force. So I put investigate the potential, not create a hoarding task force. So I have experience with this in previous positions where through code enforcement, they come across a full-on hoarding situation and the person can't better themselves or whatever. It is a multifaceted team, including community development, police usually, sometimes townships get involved, mental health board, and in this case it would be LRS for trash, dumpster, that kind of stuff. And looking at creating an actual team that when we come across an actual hoarding situation, how can we implement this team to better the situation? Do they need financial assistance? Do they just need a dumpster? Do they need someone to walk through? It's actually going through the process. I don't have a number, but more than I would like, hoarders are actually in this community that do need help. We come across it more often than I like, let's just say, to be as correct as possible. And then comprehensive plan. Next, please. Gets its own slide. So, in 2023, we had the kickoff and the existing conditions. The team is wrapping up the existing conditions memo right now, which that'll be a full presentation to you guys. That is where we are, all the demographics, land use, all that fun stuff. And then obviously we've been doing the public engagement, the survey, the DIY workshops, just getting the word out, right? So in 2024 is continuing that public engagement. And then the meat of the creation of the document, the plan visioning and those key recommendations, the sub-area plans, which are basically mini comp plans, and we have a draft sub-area map that I'm reviewing right now. We are on schedule to be in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission with that to get that vetted before we move any further on that. And then later in the year is draft the plan elements, finally with drafting the actual comp plan itself, putting everything together. We are on track for a draft document in 2024 with probably adoption early 25. And then obviously a reminder, goals of that comprehensive plan to engage the public, stakeholders, you guys on the input, present a clear and concise concept on how we want to go from here to there, enhance the quality of life, standard of living, economic growth, and then it's the guide for your decisions on future growth, development, and then what you want to spend money on in the community. So a large line item in our budget is that contractual plan review and inspections. Similar to last year, we are expecting some larger projects that take up a lot of man hours. So if we were having one of our in-house building inspectors on site, it would be an entire day of inspections, which means the rest of the community doesn't have the ability to get a regular fence inspection, postal, all those other things. So we do outside contractual plan review and inspections. These fees are passed through, so we collect a deposit, and then we pay the invoice, and then pull it out in there. So it's budget neutral, but I have to budget for it, and so it's a large line item. And those projects that are coming down the line are obviously the rec center and the union, which, cool, hold on. It's all right. What's cool about this is that these two are kitty corner from each other. So you're going to change that entire feel of Wildwood when you come down. Next one. 17 West Park, just approved at Village Board, and 27 West Park, just continued an extension on the variations. These are next to each other. So we'll have a new look, feel of Park Boulevard. And then Ecoterra down over next to the train station. So I'm also responsible for budgeting for the TIFs. As Chuck pointed out, potentially 5. I'll go in backwards order. TIF 7, which we aren't scheduled to have in front of you for formal adoption in January of 24. So we're going to create that one. TIF 6, we're holding. We're not proposing any large expenditures on there. The development that was the slide before weighs on if that comes through or not on TIF 6 future. TIF 5 Kenilworth, we're going to amend that in 2024. With the creation of TIF 7, TIF 5 will be reduced in size because a portion of it will be in future TIF 7. So we're amending it. TIF 4, we're closing it out in 2024. We're proposing to have $0 in there once TIF 7 is created because TIF 7 completely encompasses TIF 4. So it's a financial maneuver. Instead of having some residual in there, you actually move it out into TIF 5 so that you can close TIF 4 clean and then start TIF 7. And then TIF 3, the strategy here is actually to spend in 2024. We budgeted $500,000 for land assembly. We are in the second half of the life of TIF 3, and it's time to start looking at strategic purchases to move along developments. I don't have a list of where we should be going right now, but it's a budgeted amount, so over the next construction cycle, and as people start coming to me talking about ideas, having a pot of money to potentially assist and move forward more development on North Avenue.
Mark, I have a question.
Absolutely.
Can you go back to that TIF 4 and TIF 7? So you're going to close out TIF 4, and that's going to become part of TIF 7, so any
Correct.
funds that might be in TIF 4 will then
Yes.
be available in TIF 7?
That is correct. So if there's any, and through the audit and, the end of the year, any funds that are in there will be transferred to TIF 5 and hold.
Okay.
TIF 7 gets created,
Got it.
and then put it back.
Okay.
That's correct. It's a financial maneuver to capture those dollars and use them for the next development. And then that was the end. So if anyone has any specific community and economic development questions, I'm here.
How many years are left on TIF 4? Do you know, offhand?
On TIF 4, 3, 4,
37 to 14.
14,
Okay,
according to Manager Harlan, 14.
okay, thanks.
You're welcome. I don't know. I'll check. I'll get confirmation before the end of the meeting.
When it gets combined with 7, it just basically extends that TIF?
It does not.
Oh, it
We're
does not.
closing out 4. We are not extending it. It is closeout. The books will be shut. Final audit, TIF 4 no longer exists. TIF 7 then will be created, new books, new opening, new frozen TIF base, new everything. It just happens to be in the same geographic area, but TIF 4 will be done.
Is TIF 5 a buddy TIF with the new TIF that's going to be established?
They are adjacent, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just
Oh,
started
she's-
answering.
yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, sorry, Mayor.
And the reason you can transfer is because they're adjacent?
That is correct.
Okay. I just want you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for the outsourcing of the contractual services?
Yeah.
It's 132,500, right, on here? I mean, it is. Or the budget's gonna be 105. With these additional, construction plan, or the projects that are coming through, is that gonna be enough? Like, is that gonna be enough time of theirs and enough budget for all the inspections that we're gonna have?
I think so, yes. So if you remember back to the cow, this may actually go over multiple budget years as well. One project can cross over multiple budget
Right.
years. But yeah, 100,000 for contractual, I am comfortable with that number. Little note, if it goes over, we're actually capturing that money, so we'll have a higher revenue number as well. It's a neutral budget.
Got it.
Yep. And that'll be reflective in the audit.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Mark.
I'll get you that number. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks.
Start on page 28. I know, it's a lot.
So before we start, am I the only one that feels like it's been a year already? I swear I was just here last month as the interim fire chief, and here it is almost a year as interim/fire chief. Phew. Anyway, good thing I only have one big ask tonight, and we'll get to it. But a little bit about the fire department. We basically have 4 divisions: administration, which consists of myself, a deputy fire chief, and Patty Ruiz, my administrative assistant. We have a prevention division, a protection division, and an ambulance operation division. That's basically how the budget's separated. We run out of 2 fire stations. Station 81, which is by Willowbrook High School, and Station 82 on the north side of Plymouth and Princeton. If you remember last year, you guys were fortunate enough, I was fortunate enough that you blessed me with 3 additional firefighter paramedics in our budget. Unfortunately, with no fault of our own or the village, we still haven't been able to take advantage of that. We're still 4 members short. We exhausted our previous list, which we did hire 6 firefighter paramedics, 1 of which left, and then we got a new one, so we're at 6. But the 5 new kids reached their 6-month mark, the babies, so they're doing well. And we just retested. We were just establishing a list. At our next Fire and Police Commission, we will post that list and hope to take the next 4 off of there and do the same thing we did with the winning strategy of putting on a mini academy, making it a big deal, and hiring the 4 so we could come up to our full staffing of 27 firefighter paramedics. So fire prevention, what does fire prevention do? We do our open house, which we just had this past Saturday. Thank you for everyone that attended. If you were unable to attend, at least you were there in spirit. I appreciate that. More importantly, I appreciate your support of letting us do this and funding this for us. This year, we kind of went overboard on the budget, but we had to compete with the police night out, which was phenomenal. Hopefully we did it. And then the rain, but I cannot believe the amount of people that showed up even in the pouring rain. So I know the president was there, Trustee Cordova was there, and then I'm sure everyone else would have liked to have been there, but life goes on. I understand. Public education, though, we get into the schools. We teach a first grade program. We also teach first aid and CPR classes. Next one is fire protection. And just a couple things of why the budget has increased in these areas. So in our training with the Fire Academy, with the potential of hiring 4 brand-new firefighter paramedics, they might not have the Fire Academy, they might not be firefighters. We would have to send them to the Fire Academy, and that is actually quite costly. Not to mention outside fire classes for continuing education. All of our certifications require continuing education. So again, we're not just a fire department where we just put out fires. We do on all hazards. EMS, hazardous materials, technical rescue, the cat stuck in a tree, to, you know what, something doesn't seem right, smell right. We investigate everything. Contractual services with our ambulance operations, our paramedic billing, our power cot, our ambulance maintenance contracts that we have. Again, some of the equipment that we're going to be purchasing this current budget year is we're switching to, right now we have oxygen tanks, big D oxygen tanks in our stations, and we fill our small oxygen tanks in the stations. Unfortunately, that's not OSHA compliant with the systems we have, and it would be way too costly to even purchase one of those systems, and then we would have to have it in an actually separate room other than where it is now. So our EMS division investigated and found our best solution is to utilize Terra Supply, which we do anyway, and just buy some extra small oxygen cylinders and just do it on an exchange program. But we need to have at least a good supply in the station in case we run out. Some other stuff is this is year 2 of the ASIM trauma supplies and ASIM training system, which goes along with our ballistic protective equipment that we bought last year. This is the training portion of it. This is the supplies portion of it. And then we're also going to be purchasing a bleeding control skills trainer that we can actually utilize with our police department, can use them too, because it's basically putting tourniquets on and controlling the bleeding. The vehicle replacement, Engine 81, the new Engine 81 should be here in December. We ordered that almost 2 years ago. It's been a long process, but they tell me, knock on wood, that it should be here in December. Our ambulance rechassis that we actually sent out, this is the first time we're doing a rechassis. And unfortunately, because of all the strikes, we got notified that it's going to be a delay. Hopefully not too long, but we'll know more, and I will definitely pass it on. Hopefully we continue to fund the Fire Apparatus Reserve Fund. One note, after this year, because of EPA changes, The engines that we usually put in there are going to be going up $150,000. Fortunately, we're not going to have to buy a new engine for quite some time. We had to buy this one a little bit ahead of time because of the cracked frame on our old 25-year-old reserve that we have now. As far as equipment, this year, we're going to be purchasing a forcible entry training prop that we're going to be sharing with our police department. We're doing a 50-50 split on it. And again, we're going to continue to replace our fire hose, gear. What we do is we buy a little at a time, so it's not a one huge purchase where we're buying $100,000 worth of either fire gear or fire hose. We try to replace things little by little. Now, here's where I come in with the big ask. Our facilities, the Fire Station 82 was built in 1967, Station 81 was built in 1975. They haven't been significantly remodeled since they were constructed. More importantly, each station only has one shower. One. NFPA codes are written based on bad things that happen or new things we learn about, right? One of the things after fires, the most important thing is we need to come back, we need to change out our gear, wash our gear, and take a shower. Unfortunately, with 4 to 5 firefighters in the station, they're waiting. And with the amount of calls that we run, they're not going to be waiting long. They're going right back out on the calls. Moreover, we currently have 2 females on our department, and we have the potential of hiring 4 additional on this new list, which would bring our total to 6 females on our fire department, and we don't even have a separate shower for them in each of the stations. I brought this up to the manager, brought it up to Buildings and Grounds. They're very receptive. We need to try to do something. I'm asking for some money to remodel. I understand fiscal constraints. I'm not asking for a new fire station. I'm asking if we can add another shower or 2 in each of the stations somehow with the existing footprint. The other thing is we want to buy the UV disinfection system for Station 82, which is not that expensive. But what it does is we're around sick people all day. And I'm not talking, just COVID, any virus, airborne virus. We're around sick people all day. UV protection does work. The UV ventilation, the HEPA, it does work. We have it at Station 81, and we've never bought it for Station 82, and that's what I'm asking for now. The other thing is Station 81's bay floor. Anyone that showed up to our open house, it's in desperate need of repairs. Unfortunately, for the troughs, it's a very expensive, around $60,000 to reconstruct the concrete for the steel grates. And then we were going to get the anti-slip epoxy coating over it. Fortunately, this is most likely partially state funded with the Build Illinois grant that we're in line for, that would help fund the majority of that cost. Another capital expense that we're looking to do is currently the village has 17 AEDs throughout the village, and historically the fire department has taken care of all AEDs. We're going to up that number to 23. We'll want to add 6 additional. And that will include all village buildings will have an AED, and they will be trained on how to use it. We're asking for 2 additional for the fire stations. 1 additional for the PD to put in their lobby, parks for an additional one for their rec center. We're going to add 1 at the village garage, and then public works, community development, plus the cabinets, extra supplies, batteries, and the new AEDs are actually Bluetooth intelligent, where they actually will let you know when they're low on battery, when they've been used, when they've been moved, and it's something that we're going to be putting in the budget because 14 of the 17 are in their last year of life. So this is something that we need to purchase. And then I added this future considerations. So facilities, not only renovations, but also location. Having a fire station on each side of town might not be the best locations. I understand with the railroad tracks, we always need one north of the tracks. But unfortunately, when that station is out, Station 81 has to drive through the entire town to respond up there. One of the things in the future to look for is a fire station, if it is north of the tracks, but one centrally located in the center of town. I know I've always said that we're a one-station department divided into two because of the tracks. But we do get creative with the staffing to try to man both stations. Another thing coming up in the future, in 2025, we're going to need to replace 2 of our cardiac monitors. We currently have 4, 2 on our frontline ambulances and 2 on our ALS engines. And those are around $60,000 a piece, and they have about an 8-year lifespan. Another one is our medic unit. In 2025, we're due to replace. And remember, we like to replace our ambulances every 9 years. If you have ever ridden in our ambulance at that 9-year mark with 110,000 miles on them, they're pretty bumpy. So that's why we try to get right at that 9-year mark. 6 years frontline, 3 in reserve, and then replace them. This is the first time we're doing this ambulance rechassis, which we're actually saving around $70,000. And let's see how it goes. It might work great, it might not, but we need to try because we're never going to know. And then a car, which we're getting in the lease program next year, and then in 2025 we'll get the additional one with the in the lease program.
Chief, do we have any grant programs for some of the equipment? You know, like the heart monitors, AEDs?
There are. Next year, now, the grants that we can go for is like the FEMA AFG grant, which we've been, knock on wood, been very successful on. They released those in March. That's why we really can't budget for those. We did put in this budget a future AFG grant, because how it is we have to buy it outright, and then we can get reimbursed 90% from the federal government. But yes, we can look. When they release their funding document in March, they will tell you what is the high priority. And my thought was to go for the AEDs next year, because it's a $56,000 expense. Again, it would be more of a community benefit. And then the year after, absolutely with the heart monitors. That's something that's always a high priority. But we just bought 2 in 2021, and then they're going to look at, you know, how old are your existing ones, and then when it's old, when it's not old, it gets kicked down. It's a very competitive grant process.
Thanks.
The renovations for the bathroom and showers, both, they're not in here, right? You don't have them in?
They're actually in buildings budget.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know there was just one shower in each.
Yes. Now, you guys are more than welcome to come down and tour the stations, do a ride along, come have coffee with me. I would love to take you around, show you our vehicles, which our vehicles we don't have an issue with. And the stations, we try to keep them up the best we can. And I understand fiscal constraints. I do. A lot of village buildings are in disrepair. I get it. That's why, being reasonable, all I'm looking for is the addition of a shower or 2 at each of the stations.
Trustee Kumar.
In the budget, what is there? Is it a shower or 2 showers, or what are you planning for?
What I did is I asked our plumbing inspector to take a look at our stations, and in our existing footprint, can we even add showers? We can renovate the shower that we have down south, the area, because fortunately, none of the interior walls are load-bearing. So we can lose a storage cabinet that we have currently, 5 or 6 file cabinets with inspection data in there. We can get rid of, and we could fit 3 individual shower bathrooms down at Station 81, and then up north we can fit 1 more. We can expand our little bathroom into a shower, lose one of our doors going out to the apparatus floor, which is fine. And so within the existing footprint. Fortunately, we have basements where we can access all the plumbing underneath, which makes it a lot easier.
Another question, is that sufficient once you add the extra people that you're planning to add?
It's not ideal, but it's a step in the right direction. What would be ideal is, well, I don't want to get in trouble.
Go ahead. Go ahead, say it.
Say it out loud, put it into the universe.
We are a one-station fire department in the center of town here, preferably on Home Avenue. That would increase and improve our running procedures. Because right now, remember how I explained last year, how we run is we are jump companies in each of the stations. Because remember, 70% of the time, we're at minimum staffing, which is 6, which is 3 at each station. So when the ambulance goes out, the engine is not available. When the engine goes out, the ambulance is not available. So that would be ideal. But again, with the railroad tracks, I understand. What side of town are you going to put the fire station on? We have to have 2. I get it.
That's one of the reasons why a overpass, underpass is especially important. We could build one station centrally located and had both, we had a straight path through. We could staff properly and probably save some money. Not enough to pay for the overpass, but it would make a difference.
Absolutely.
It's probably the best argument for the overpass or underpass in the whole city.
Good. Okay, anybody else? Hey, thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much for your time.
We should start on 22.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, and thank you for the time. First and foremost, if we can go to the next slide. Okay. Well, what we do, and this is obviously pretty remedial, but we should mention it anyway, we obviously maintain public order and safety. We enforce all local and state laws. We prevent, detect, investigate any and all criminal activities, whether it's in our town or we're being asked to assist any town in the region or in the county. What we also do is obviously traffic enforcement, and we handle a myriad of mental health type calls. We go on domestic type calls, which is the most serious call that we can go on almost every day, and trying to do that crisis intervention with people. And it's something that puts our officers in jeopardy, but luckily they have the skills and the abilities to handle a crisis intervention when it's needed for any kind of mental health type call, whether it's homeless or anybody with substance abuse. Anything we also do in town or the special events we're a part of, usually anywhere from 17 to 25 events a year. There's usually police officers in attendance or a community service officer that'll be there. We also have currently one school resource officer at the high school, and in a little bit, in about a month, we're going to have one at the middle school, so we're very proud of that. Then also, we're the eyes and ears of the village when the village closes up during the weekday and on the weekends. Anytime if there's a water main break or anything, we're the first one that's called out, and then we'll reach out to the appropriate agency for a follow-up. What we are also a large part of, our footprint in this county and in this region as a police department is pretty significant. Over 2 years ago, we joined the Chicago Vehicular Hijacking Task Force, which has resulted in, it's not on a slide, I'm going off slide, sorry. I'm going off script, my apologies. But we're a part of this vehicular hijacking task force that's netted, I can't even tell you how many recovered stolen vehicles, guns, and arrested numerous violent felons. I have the statistics to prove it, to back that up, us being a part of that task force. It's been a really good thing, and us networking with the towns around us and with DuPage and Cook County. Also, we're part of, or also from this task force, I should say, it was the saturation patrols that's allowed us to have this collaboration with all these different police departments that's netted all of this, the arrests, the seizure of the vehicles, and all the guns that we've taken into evidence. A lot of our officers are also part of MERIT, or the Metropolitan Emergency Response and Investigative Team, and we have officers as a part of every one of those components, whether it's SWAT, traffic crash reconstruction, major crimes, the Public Integrity Team, Forensic Investigative Unit, K-9, and the Executive Board. We also have officers that are supervisors in many of those components, so we're definitely out there and in the county. Our Records Department has also trained every department in DuPage County in NIBRS, or the National Incident-Based Reporting System. We're also part of the DuPage Chiefs Association Executive Board. We're also on the Emergency Telephone System Board, ETSB, the Policy Advisory Committee, and we're also part of the DuPage Chiefs Executive Board. So as you can see, our department is well known, and a positive residual byproduct of this is we just tested for new officers to establish a basic list. We had 55 people pick up applications, and we had 27 people take the test. The vendor that was applying the test said this is the most they've seen come to a test in over a year, and they had asked us a couple questions, so we kind of went through the process, and it's more culture about what we do, how we treat our officers, how we get along, how we go out there and try and affect crime and violent crime in our area. And the slide we have up here now is basically an organizational chart in a different form. We had to reformat our organizational chart that's going to be in the next budget book, and thank you to Assistant Village Manager Suzanne McVeigh for her efforts in putting that together. But obviously, we're 1 chief, 2 deputy chiefs, 7 sergeants, 22 police officers, and you see the rest of the people between part-time officers, community service officers, and 7 records personnel, and then 1 evidence custodian. Next slide. And some of the major causes of our budgetary increases, obviously salary increases. Our salaries will increase anywhere from 3 to 3.25% annually. And obviously that's a large part of our budget. Also, what is problematic for us is filing equipment and vendor costs. We can have vendors that can shoot up anywhere from 5 to 20% on costs. And we will need many of these vendors and many of these services or maintenance agreements that we'll have in place. So it's definitely causing our budget to go up. And lastly, which needs to be talked about, is the increased training hours due to the Safety Act, and which requires officers to, if you want to go to the next slide, it'll show a lot of the different training requirements we have just for the Safety Act alone. And this has not even included the current trainings that we have to do. So you see there's 30 total hours every 3 years, or 10 hours a year, and then a myriad of different things that we have to train in. Emergency medical response certifications, crisis intervention training, updates, and all the things that you see there. It comes out to annually about $791 per officer per year, or $30,000 a total cost. How we're looking to absorb that is, if you want to go to the next slide, is creating a 1 position, and that's the training sergeant, that's going to hopefully handle all that. And then in moving a sergeant over into that position, we're then going to have to backfill with the hiring of another officer. So we'd only be asking to hire 1 new officer, and what this training sergeant is going to do is fully manage the 39 officers if the board approves our budget. Is manage 39 full-time officers, 6 part-time training, part-time training officers, per the Safety Act, and then acquire and maintain training certificates to conduct many of those training components in-house. So our training sergeants are going to have to be certified in many different things just to keep costs down to train. We're still going to have to send some officers off-site, and that training sergeant is going to coordinate all that. Next slide. So, and then backfilling that position is the hiring of our 39th officer, and that's going to either take the position of the officer we're going to lose to the DEA real soon, or the District 45 school resource officer. Now, the officer that we may hire as a 39th officer is either may be certified or not certified. If the officer already has that police certification, we're going to save $4,000 off the bat, not having to send that officer to an academy. So it just depends on how the list bears out when the hiring of that next officer in the next budgetary process. And then the third part is hopefully we're looking to maintain our important TAC officer position. That's definitely done a wealth of good in some of our tougher areas of town, and making sure that we keep crime down and dealing with some of the more difficult elements that we deal with. And this is some of the equipment requests that we have in this current budget request. 3 new squad cars, new in-car Axon cameras that then correspond with the new body-worn cameras that we have from this current budget, 2 additional flock cameras. As Chief Stapleton had said, the door breaching training kit that we're going to share with the fire department, as well as a drone that we're requesting. Many communities have them, and they are a godsend that we need on many calls as an overview and a flyover that both of our departments can then use. We're going to be requesting new flooring on the second floor, which is that rug in all those areas is almost 20 years old, and it's showing it, so that's going to be part of our building requests. We typically put in about $10,000 in building repairs, and that's going to probably come out of that part in and of itself. So we're doing some work now in the building, and with the help of the Parks Department, getting some of those tasks done. And then, okay, the next slide. And these are the different divisions that we have, obviously administration, records, detectives, and patrol, and these are our budgetary increases, and it's very easy to explain why the percentages are going up that far. Police administration is more or less at the cost of the vendors that are in that division. Records is going up because we're going to be adding that training sergeant to that group. And then police detectives, we're adding a school resource officer district for District 45 in that part. And then the police patrol is only going up 5.2%. And that's just basically a contract and a salary increase related. And one of the things I wanted to mention, though, is in the 16 months that we've been working under the guidance of Manager Harline, we've seen tremendous growth in our department, whether it's through personnel and programs, and I just want to go over those things really quickly. Adding 2 officers, which would allow us to, as we have talked about before, adding an officer to work with the DEA, adding a training sergeant, adding a school resource officer to District 45. Manager Harline helped participate in the search for a new deputy chief to replace Deputy Chief Runge when he retired. He assisted in the interview process and allowed us to float a 38th officer, understanding that it takes a long time for that officer to be street ready. So that's something that we were not able to do previously. He's allowed us to change the evidence custodian from a part-time position to a full-time position, which then allows that person to then go out on calls and be an evidence technician and process crime scenes. He's worked with our patrol division to come up with an MOU for 12-hour shifts, which shown a reduction in sick overtime by over 40% to our budget. So, and that was pretty significant. We've also had 2 grants in the 16 months with Manager Harline. Transformative grant, which has allowed us to have an in-house social worker for 2 years. And then recently we were just awarded a retail theft grant that's going to allow us to purchase $24,000 worth of equipment to address any retail problem issues we may have with some of the stores in town. Now, as far as equipment, we've had added 2 water fountain filtration systems, because you may not know the police department doesn't have a water fountain other than the lobby. The building was built in 2004. That's one of the things they missed. So we added 2 filtration systems, so now we have potable water inside in 2 different spots in the building. We've added, as I stated before, body-worn cameras. 7 new squads, 3 investigative, 4 patrol, and this last investigative one was due to the sale that he allowed for the Charger that we sold that the board approved. We've also added 2 additional flock cameras, which is a godsend in any kind of investigation. That's the first thing we'll do, is go to the cameras for follow-ups and investigations. And a project we're currently working on is the renovation of our kitchen dining area. We will produce before and after photos so you can see the dramatic change that's definitely been a huge boost to morale for all of our people using the dining area. And lastly, we've been able to purchase truck scales. We'll then hopefully address any of the issues with overweights that are on Route 83. And overall, our budgetary increase that we're requesting is just under 7%, 6.76%. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, Chief, thank you. I do have a few for you. First of all, my first question is, do we get any state or federal funds for the mandated Safety Act training?
No.
Nothing whatsoever?
No, it is an unfunded mandate.
Okay, so those are unfunded.
There is a grant out there, but it's so complicated that most
Don't even try.
aren't even trying. So that's something we hope will change, but until then.
Okay. And in your presentation, it said one of the causes of budgetary increases this year is due to salary increases. And I was just wondering if you know how much money we spent last year in overtime hours, and how do we plan on budgeting for overtime hours for the previous year? Do you think that the training sergeant will help alleviate some of those overtime issues?
Absolutely. That's why we work with Manager Harlight in creating that position. We think that that would help offset that cost. I don't have that number from 2023, from the current year to date, but in looking at the training costs, we think we can kind of contain that by doing a lot of that training in-house and doing a lot of online training, which we're currently doing. And remember, the officers are on 12-hour shifts, so they'll hopefully have more time in their work day to then address those things. What we're hoping to create and what we're hoping to do is to have officers in a classroom setting being trained by the training sergeant, which would dramatically reduce costs that are related to the safety mandates.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the overtime stuff on 25. I had two questions.
That's not actually the numbers, that's what they're proposing.
The year to date. Sorry, maybe I'm reading this wrong.
Yeah.
23 year to date on 25. And salaries, overtime, full-time, 323.
They spent way more than 323 on overtime.
So this is incorrect?
What are you looking at? On which page?
I think Trustee Cordova is also looking for the overtime hours from the dollar amount from last year. Looking at the overtime on here, it just says year-to-date 4,049.
We can get you those numbers offline. Obviously, those are not posted in here now.
That's just the records person. I was looking at the patrol person on 25.
Right here. If you look, it says overtime. You fold
Yeah,
it
but it's
around,
records.
but it's for each one.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So-
Oh, got it. Okay. How are the trainings managed now?
How are they managed now? Our deputy chief and for support services does this, but there's a wave coming. There's a wave coming, and that's all the mandates that we're going to have to come in compliance with. One of the issues, though, is that if an officer is expired in their training or and slightly over, you're going to start getting tickler reminders, and then at some point an officer could have their certification paused, which is something that's never happened for in the state of Illinois. So it's coming, and I don't want to see our department be used as the first test case for that. So I want officers to be able to work the street, and we're going to be working diligently to make sure that all their certifications are up to date. And going through, and we have a computer system already that we use that will help the training supervisor going through all that, but it is a mountain of training. And that's the part that we're all trying to figure out, each department collectively or individually, and a lot of us are going to hold regional trainings to assist with some of the things that have us out there. We're going to be spending a lot of time in front of a computer, which is where you would not want the officers to be. You want them out on the streets, being visible, being omnipresent, and the mandates are causing us to do otherwise.
I think a lot of what you're looking for is on page 25.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd just like to make a comment, Chief. I've talked with multiple different agencies and other officers from all around, and every time Villa Park is brought up, they have nothing but great things to say and how well you are running the department. So thank you for that. It reflects not just here in Villa Park, but in many other municipalities and other agencies, so thank you.
There was a culture of great leadership before I got here. There really was. And I'm just trying to augment it, add to it as best I can. One of the examples of this, going back to the vehicular hijacking task force, is there's like a call sheet that comes out every time we're going to do this operation with Chicago and Cook County and all these other agencies. We're usually listed as the #1 agency, and we're not in alphabetical order. So it says Villa Park Police, then it's got all these other agencies listed in DuPage and in Cook County. So Chicago PD thinks of us first.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good job.
Last question for me. What exactly is a flock camera?
It's something that not only identifies the plate of a vehicle, which compares it to a database that's downloaded daily, it also has the make, model, and color of the vehicle. And it is so instrumental in all different departments use the flock cameras. They're on the expressway, they're in the communities, and it allows us to say, if there's a crime committed here in town, we can go to flock cameras, and we have access to all these cameras all across the state, or even out of state, and allows us to actually track a vehicle. You know, I'm not giving away any trade secrets here, because I think even the criminals knew that. That's why they're always changing plates as quickly as they can. So it's that fast, and how quickly you can come up with the information, and you can literally track somebody as they're going somewhere in the state.
Amazing. All right, thank you.
I think flock is an actual name variant.
It is, because before you had license plate readers from different vendors. Flock is its own company, and every time that we have had the occasion to use them, they go off daily. That tells a stolen car, somebody's got a suspended license, no license, they're wanted for some crime. It goes off daily. And so we have officers that try and address it. We can find the vehicles at any time we do.
So so you said Flock is a vendor that's across the board. What is their like coverage, like network coverage? Is it a large, you can go across state?
They're in many states. They're across the country. Flock is a company that has sold cameras to Texas, Indiana, Florida, all these different states. And as an individual officer, we can go onto their website, because it's web-based, and I can figure out which cameras I want to follow. So I can follow the cameras in my hometown or in here in Villa Park, and I can get notifications either by text or by email letting me know when a problematic vehicle goes past a camera, let's say on Roosevelt or North Avenue. And
So are they the biggest of the agencies that like has cameras like this, or is there just one?
That I don't know.
Oh, no, you don't know.
I don't
But you've just traditionally used them as an agency.
They're the second generation of cameras that we've been using.
Okay.
So.
You mentioned, Chief, the 2 grants that have been received in the last 16 months, and one of them was the social worker. Has that grant, did it just start? Is that something that we will be having in the near future?
We are 1 year into it. We're waiting to compile the statistics from the first year, and then maybe we'll produce a report then either for the weekly or then at a future meeting. And so we're entering the second year.
Okay.
We're looking at ways and options and how to keep that service available after the grant is done.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
So the next budget is far less exciting than police and fire, so I really should schedule myself before them next time. So we're just going to look at administration, finance, and public affairs. So those start on page 6, and they're relatively the same year to year. They include the cost for elected officials, the commissions, legal services, and general village membership falls into the public affairs. So like our IML, the DMMC, those sort of general organizations that we're a part of fall into here. We also have our sales tax rebates that are part of our public affairs, so those remain relatively flat year to year until they fall off at the end of those cycles. The manager's office includes, obviously, the village manager, the executive assistant, myself, communications, and IT. So that budget really focuses on the personnel costs related to those positions and some ancillary items for those. And then information technology, obviously, says it all. We have started to consolidate everything into our IT from different software, so you'll see that as we've gone over the last couple years. But that is all of our equipment, our renewals, and then the salary for the information technology manager. So again, relatively unexciting for the upcoming year. Probably the biggest things in taking feedback from the board is to plan a commissioner appreciation reception. So we did add some funds for that. We hope to, get something planned to invite all of our commissioners and kind of do a thank you reception for them. So we are looking to do that in 2024. I believe we've done it in the past, but we did kind of allocate funds specifically for that. The commission requests are also under boards and commissions on page 6. Those are relatively flat. We are still waiting for some of the commissions to respond. Typically, year to year, they are, relatively small increments when you're looking at the overall budget. The most significant one is the fund commission. We did add in those additional funds to put them at $9,250 so that they could do the Jubilee. They did request to kind of change up a little bit of how they were allocating their funds, but at the end of the day, they can run different programs, however they need within that amount. But we'll update that once we get some additional requests from the commissions. And then finally, the village manager's office, there's really no change outside of just personnel changes. So in previous years, before my position existed, I fell into central services in the finance office as the human resource manager. Last year, we had wanted to move all that over to the village manager's office to better reflect the assistant village manager position. That didn't quite happen in the budget process, and so where you see those expenses increase this year, it really is just moving from finance over to the village manager's office. So otherwise, it's relatively minimal. For information technology, again, you'll see a relatively large increase in his budget, and that is primarily the consolidation of all of our software. So over the years, we've kind of had all of our different softwares across all different budgets, which is fine, and, it's all the general fund, so, it doesn't matter how you want to account for it, but in terms of trying to really look at whatever our IT costs are, to have him manage the renewals, we're consolidating everything. So last year, we had moved a lot of things. When we went through again this year, there was still some things to move over. We also have the costs for new softwares. So obviously, the customer relationship management software, BSNA, which was approved by the board, will have our first payment in this budget year, and then we're looking at, I think it's like $150,000 next year for that continued implementation, and then we'll have the final payment of the implementation in 2025.
Actually, just to.
Oh, sorry.
No, I just wanted to, so if you go budget to budget even for other contractual services, I hope I'm reaching that, Mike. The actual budget to budget increase isn't nearly as much as budget to projected. One of the reasons is the first BSNA payment was going to be this year, it will be next year. The contract's signed, but we won't really get them on board until, their first bill won't become due until next year because of the structure of the contract. So instead of going, if you look at $349,700 to $357,500, it's not nearly as big. So, sorry.
Yeah, we're trying to get the first payment this year. So we'll see what happens. We still have a few months left, just to kind of get that out of the way, since it was budgeted. And then, as Manager Harline mentioned earlier, we are implementing a time and attendance system, which is huge for us. It sounds, the cost is relatively minimal, but the impact across our organization is, I can't even probably say the word. So everything we do now is very paper-based. Police and fire have automated time and attendance systems that are specific to police and fire, but every other department, it's Excel spreadsheets, it's a punch time clock. For an organization our size, that is very time consuming. So what a lot of our administrative assistants that sort of oversee getting payroll to our payroll specialist, they are taking almost a week to process payroll. Where once it's automated, it should be, a couple hours at most. So we are very excited to get that implemented, and we're in the process of getting all of that set up, and we should have it launched before the end of the year. So I also think we'll see some savings just in terms of our ability to better manage people, right? Because it's not it's not paper-based. We're able to see people in real time, so it's going to make a significant difference in how we're managing personnel. The recreation software, so they're, Gina, are you live yet, or next quarter?
Actually, next month.
Next month. So the new rec software, Civic Rec, and I'm sure they'll talk about it later, that is all consolidated into the IT manager budget, and that I think will have some increased functionality for our recreation department, which will be great. The other things that we're planning for is the opening of the community recreation center. So one of the things that you'll see in the part-time, we have about $30,000 for temporary help. So when that building, before it opens, there's going to be, a lot of IT needs that aren't part of the overall contract to open the building. And so we're looking to kind of contract that out because Brian can't be everywhere. And so we're hoping to kind of get somebody in that can, set up phones, set up desktop computers, can, work on the fob system. Anything that sort of just needs to be ready to go before we open, we'll have a person designated to get that done. The other thing we're looking at is just what equipment might not be part of the overall capital planning process. And so all of that is kind of factored into that budget generally. Just a couple of things I don't have slides on. The central services and finance, which are the next couple pages, which are really under the purview of the department director, but also the finance director, but also include a lot of things that kind of coincide with the village manager's office. Obviously, it's our utility billing and finance staff that are in there and mostly personnel costs. But you'll also see in central services sort of our IMRF, our risk management costs. Those are, things that we look at when we're looking at adding personnel. Our full-time personnel budget without overtime, just sort of straightforward, salaries are just under $12 million. And when you add benefits and the lifetime of somebody's pension, IMRF, that's upwards of 40-50% of a employee's life. And so whenever we're looking to add staff, that central services really comes into play because it covers a lot of those general things that are important to the employee's life cycle, benefits, IMRF. There's the pension pass-throughs across the different funds, and then our risk management cost as well. So I said it was far less exciting, but any questions? Yes.
Just good.
Back to the commissions. What does the police and fire commission spend their $38,000 on?
So primarily that is for legal services. And and then their new hire fitness exams. I believe it's when you guys have testing. Yeah, so all of those things come out of the police and fire commission budget, not out of the individual fire and police budgets.
And I think we've also put some money into finance for some part-time work for helping us get the audit out faster next year.
Okay.
Something that took way too long this year. We're going to do a bunch of different things, but one of them is we may hire some people or hire a person to help with some of the tasks that are early on in the process that we have to do a lot of prepared by client data for them and make sure that we don't miss any deadlines, because I think that's one of the things, about the only thing we have control over and about the only thing that we could look to ourselves on. And I'm sorry, you want to chime in on this? The only thing we can do to hurry up is that. The rest was beyond our office.
Okay.
The BSNA, the ERP software, is that all encompassing of the rec, the agenda management, time and attendance? Do they all speak to each other, or is it all one kind of solution?
So the BSNA software will include our financial management. It's also going to have community development. It will allow us to look at some items that fall within public works, so utility billing. So all of those different components are going to speak together. And then our time and attendance system, though it's a separate software, it will speak to BSNA when we run software. So BSNA also has an HR component. So we're basically setting up the time and attendance now because we cannot wait anymore.
Right. Well, if you're sitting there with the...
Yes. I mean, it's a literal punch clock. And so once we're going to get that implemented, there are some things that we're going to have to do manually now that once BSNA is set up, it will, set up so it's automated. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's going to be great.
Is it punch clock worth anything as an antique?
So our new punch clocks are gonna go in
That's
soon,
it.
and I was like, we're gonna have to like take it down and put it in the historical society.
Yeah,
I
right,
mean, I don't know how old it is. Yeah,
That's
it's probably like
I've seen it.
original
It's
to the
pretty old.
building. Alright. Any other questions?
No, that's it. Thanks, Suzanne.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to go over the Parks and Recreation and Fleet divisions. So first off is the Recreation Division, and we just have some snapshots of 2023. Before I get started, we have 6 full-time employees in the Recreation Division. Gina, who's here, I asked the staff to be here today. Gina oversees the division. We have 3 recreation supervisors.
Look at their salary. Sorry, Greg.
No, good point. Gina oversees the 3 recreation supervisors, the 2 front desk staff. We also have 4 part-time front desk staff that work off hours, Saturdays, evenings. We do have 30 program instructors throughout the year. And I'll touch upon it later, but we do hire approximately 55 pool staff in the summer. For this 2024 budget year, we're hoping to add 1 program supervisor towards the end of the year to help with programming. We offer over 1,640 programs annually. 1,600 households register for the programs and memberships. We do have 40 special and seasonal events offered annually, and 68% are free to the public. Out of the 40 special events, 39 of those are family-oriented. The recreation staff also keeps current with trends. We try to offer new things that are coming up. We've offered pickleball. We're in the middle school now on Monday evenings. We've offered youth basketball. We tried something new this summer. We've outpaced the surrounding communities. It's a kind of a joint effort with those communities. And we look to do that again once the recreation center is built, to just keep going and offering new programs. The Recreation Division also has tweaked the preschool area, early childhood. We've restructured camps, especially the mini camp. We saw an increase in participation, which also had increased the revenues. Like I mentioned before, Jefferson Pool, we employ 55 seasonal staff, and we've increased our wages to the lifeguards to $15.25 per hour. We coming out of COVID, we were low on staffing, and there was a highly competitive. We were paying a minimum wage, basically. I mean, the lifeguards were making a little bit more, but McDonald's and some of the local businesses were offering a little more, and so we lost some staff, so we wanted to be competitive in that area. And so we raised our fees, or excuse me, we raised our hourly rate, and that increased our lifeguards. We added 4 additional this year, and we hope to see that trend continue. What we've proposed for this year's budget as well is when lifeguards first come into our Jefferson Pool, they're required, of course, to pass lifeguard certification. We cover half of that cost, and then every subsequent year of the recertification was up to the lifeguard to cover, and we're proposing to, in order to keep lifeguards returning, to cover that cost for recertification. Mariner Swim Team, it's always been a strong program. It was strong in the 90s when I was here. We average around 110 swimmers annually. We get a lot of our lifeguards from the swim team. It's just a phenomenal program. We do have a strong booster club. The Mariners' parents are really involved with the program. pay for some equipment. So we hope to see that continue. This past season, our pool attendance did drop from 2022. We've kind of stole what the golf course does. They keep track of playable days, and so we keep track of, we call them swimmable days. So it kind of gives us a good indication of how many days we're able to swim. So in 2022, we had 86 swimmable days. This past year, we had 65. So we didn't have as good a weather. Of course, the pool is all weather dependent. We have a nice, warm, hot summer. The attendance goes up, and so do the revenues. Another area of improvement, Janet Bry is our senior coordinator, and she just does a phenomenal job with the seniors. Our participation ever since she's taken over the program, or that area, has increased. In 2022, we had 2,008 folks, and we have 2,506 in 2023. So our revenue, again, because of that corresponding number, saw an increase from $28,900 to $31,000. So we hope to see that trend continue. In our recreation division for the upcoming budget for Jefferson Pool, we typically do this every few years is purchase Chase chairs and Chase lounge chairs. We're looking to purchase a liner similar to what was over at Lovekin Pool. We did see some little bit of issues with the pool shell. Brian's staff fixed the concrete issues. We'd like to get a pool liner, and those liners have a life expectancy about 7 to 10 years. So a few years back, we did a lot of maintenance on the pool building itself. We replaced the roof. We did tuck pointing. The roof was a huge project. We replaced windows, plumbing, the filtration system. So we did a lot of work internally to some of those buildings. So now we got to concentrate on the pool shell.
Just to make sure you understand, if approved, which we intend to have it in this year's budget, and I suspect it would be favorable with this board, but it's unlikely we will be able to put it in before the swimming season, so it'll be one more full swimming season, and then in the fall would be when they would put in the new liner, because there's more building days after the pool closes.
Would this, your new building plan, building upkeep and maintenance plan that you have, will the pool be factored into that plan as well?
Those are for building. So the pool, the shower house, etc. Is that on the pool? It's not a part of the pool. Okay, it's not. Okay, no, it's not. Sorry, but yeah, that's all buildings. So the pool wouldn't have been. Okay. Anyway, so no, it's not on that list.
So if it passes in the budget and purchasing that liner, like Manager Hardline said, it's probably best to do that in the fall, because there's a lot more better weather from September through October as opposed to springtime. Spring is kind of iffy. We have a bad May. We certainly don't want to, April, May, we certainly don't want to go into the pool season. So we're planning to do that when the pool closes for the 2024 season.
Just quick, quick question. The current liner will last the next summer?
I'm sorry?
The current liner, it'll last throughout the next...
There's no liner there. It's all just paint. It's a concrete shell and paint. Sir?
So my question then for you is if the pool building is not falling under your building maintenance repair, how are we providing insight on how we are going to maintain that pool moving forward, and where does that fall under and how do we budget for that? Because it seems similar to the Lufkin pool incident where we didn't really have a lot of future insight or planning for the maintenance of that facility. So in my opinion, I'm a little lost because that pool, the bathhouse, to me, is a facility that should fall under that building maintenance plan that you're establishing for all village-owned buildings. So I just want to make sure that, if we're going to be spending $200,000 on a pool liner that's only going to last us 7 to 10 years, that's not a long time. What's our plan moving forward, and especially for that facility?
Well, okay, so there's two issues. One is the pool itself. We know that it's time to put in a pool liner to extend the life. We don't have the financial capacity to build a pool right now. So over the next 3 to 4 years, and something to discuss during strategic planning, is how to come up with a strategy to be ready to fund a pool in 7 to 10 years from now. Because that is something that has not been, that's a plan that has not been developed. The building has just been renovated relatively recently, and it probably should be incorporated into, future updates. It is, there are a lot of buildings that are in more need of repair than that particular building.
But that's the thing, that's my point, is that we could plan for coming up with funds to get a new pool. We could do that all day long, but we already have an established building that has no plan moving forward how we maintain that part of that building.
We do maintenance on all our buildings. That building was just renovated.
But it's not part of your building plan moving forward.
How many years ago was that pool building?
3 years or so.
Brian, do you want to? Yeah, Brian, you want to go up there and?
So we do have we did do a building assessment or a pool assessment. Brian, you can come up.
Yeah.
We did with Lufkin, and there was a need for a pool assessment. So
what I'm talking about is not a pool assessment.
Right.
In my opinion, the pool and the building are the same property that the village owns, okay? I understand that the pool is separate. We need a liner, and that is different than the facility itself. How are we going to maintain that facility from this point moving on? Same question for the new recreation center then. Are these buildings going to be part of that maintenance plan that you're establishing? Because it is one of our buildings, and without that building, if that building is not accessible to the public, then what's good is a pool, spending $200,000 on it if there's no bathhouse for people to change, or if something happens to that building. That's the point I'm trying to make, is like, where's the plan for the building itself? Where has it been? Where is it? I mean, what is the plan for our upkeep and maintenance of that building?
So again, it has been recently renovated. The building, the evaluation of village buildings throughout the village, we could add that to it. Of course, we know that we have to maintain that building and any other buildings that are owned by the village. Of course, we'll add the rec center to that maintenance program. But at this point, in the next 7 years, the rec staff is also the staff that does our building assessment, our building maintenance. That building will be maintained for the next 7-10 years while we come up with another plan. We can add that to our list it is not in the list of the buildings being evaluated.
And that's my question, why is that?
Because it's 3 years old. It's been recently.
The bathhouse at Jefferson Pool, you're saying because it has been renovated within the last 3 years, that we do not need a plan for that moving forward to be added to the rest?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's not in the current evaluation of all of our buildings. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be in our maintenance program.
Because of the reevaluation made by our staff 3 years ago, or within the last 3 years.
It wasn't reevaluated, it was renovated. It was also evaluated before renovated. So the roof was repaired, there were some other repairs made to that building.
So then my next question then is what are the qualifications or stipulations for a village-owned building to be a part of the plan that you are talking about?
The plan will come out of the evaluation that's underway that Kluber is doing right now. So adding that building to the evaluation is not a difficult thing to do. I mean, I don't know, Mark, if you want to add anything to make.
You can always expand the scope of the project and add additional buildings. But I think the plan that they're doing is on the buildings that need repair. We left out one building, correct? In their plan, wasn't there one building that we left out?
So, President Cazone,
I'm speaking on behalf of Parks and Rec.
Brian can come
The
up.
facilities assessment that we're working on right now was for the primary, there's 15 buildings on there. Most of them are on Home Avenue. It's what staff is in and out of every day. It's what the public are in and out of every day, not a specialized building. The pool is its own animal because it is so unique. So it's not a traditional brick and mortar with a parking lot. So that's why it was not included in that assessment.
okay, so then, just so I get this right.
Yeah.
The facilities that are under this plan that is being made are only facilities identified as buildings that have potential problems that need to be renovated or issues fixed?
No.
Okay.
So police department's on there, village hall's on there, public works, the rest of this, fleet, both fire stations, the museum, both historic train stations, I don't know what to refer to them as. So it's not, we know there's something wrong. It's, we need a plan moving forward because we have a deferred maintenance budget that we're spending money on. This will tell us what we should spend the money on appropriately.
Okay, and I understand that. Thank you for explaining that. So then, who makes the determination to leave village buildings off, like the pool or not? In my opinion, shouldn't we have some sort of plan for every building that we have in town, regardless if it's been renovated in the last 3 years or not?
So the pool was held off, but because we had a facility assessment done there in 2013. So we have an assessment of the pool, and that's what we've been basing our maintenance off.
Within that assessment, then, what are some of the issues that popped up besides the liner?
Everything that we've done over these past few years has been part of that assessment.
So that assessment, then, is there an actionable timetable moving forward on how we are going to?
We've updated it year to year as we've done it as well. So that assessment that they provided, so we can provide all the things that we've completed.
Okay.
And we've updated the.
So I think then there's just a little bit of confusion of why we're creating a building plan when some buildings are in it and some aren't. So that's, I think, the confusion there.
Yeah, we can certainly share the pool assessments from that the architects did, and they've identified the areas of a need of repair, some immediate repairs, future repairs. So they've already went through that and identified all that.
So then, using that assessment, have we integrated those costs into a budget somewhere then?
Every year we do. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every year we do, we look at the assessment and see what's needed. Staff also goes in there with like the heater, is going to need a replacement. So we make those determinations. They also noted, back, because they did that for Lufkin as well, and they asked for the needed repairs. At that time, it was about $350,000 to do the necessary repairs for Lufkin, and at that time, the board voted not to do those repairs. So we're following the assessment, and we're coming up with, now this is something different. The pool liner was not noted because there was not a pool liner at Jefferson, but staff noted that the concrete some areas are wearing out, and there would be a necessity to do a pool liner to keep the water in the pool. This buys us the 7 to 10 year lifespan to then plan if we want to move forward and build a new pool. If we go to referendum or what have you, then we have that time frame to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The liner that was on Lufkin, that lasted a lot more.
It was like 12. It outlived its useful life, and what happened was it started to delaminate from the pool shell. And so staff at that time was taking anchors and anchoring the liner into the shell. And that eventually failed as well, because it was just putting Band-Aids on things, and that's where we came up with the plan to do a full-fledged assessment. I think it was like a $9,000 cost to the village at that time to do that assessment for both pools, so we can do those necessary, they can identify all the repairs that are needed, and then we would, from that identification, make those necessary repairs. And that's what we did for Lufkin. We came up to do those repairs. It got turned down, pool had to close. We're doing the same thing for Jefferson, to do all those necessary repairs.
Yeah, good.
Personally, I'm a little concerned because the last you're saying was done in 2013. And yes, you're following through with that assessment, and it's better than what we have maybe with the other buildings right now. But it would be nice to put everything on the same timeline and actually add whatever the pool house or whatever to the plan, even though it may be at the bottom, so that everything's on the same page. My concern is it's not on the same page, so that's going to be forthcoming a problem. Second, you put in the $200,000 for the pool liner. Once you put in a pool liner, as President Cazone said, maybe you can get up to 12 years or whatever from that pool. 10 is what it says, but you obviously pulled it till 12, whatever. My question is there a chance to replace the pool liner at one point, or at that point, only choice is to have a new pool?
Oh, no, certainly, we can, if at 9 years we identify the need to replace the liner, we'll replace it again. You can, the company will come out and tear out the old liner and put the new liner in, sure.
Okay, so that is a possibility that we should also think about, building into our budget at one point, because saying a referendum money is going to come, I don't see it. I mean, until I see it, that we're collecting in a fund for a new pool, and some, 17 million at this point is going to turn out to be 23, 24 million as we go on in the 7-8 years at least to get a new pool. So you're talking about quite a bit and a chunk of change. So that should be in the budget. I feel running over time as to, whatever community plan we have, including the pool, including the thing. Now, I don't know, just like this, we're putting we've got bathrooms coming in everywhere. Like, we're going to have bathrooms at Lufkin Park. There are bathrooms on Wildwood that, all those things also will wear down over time, and they should be in some plan as well. So any kind of facility that's closed, our shell that we're putting in also will have maintenance. And I know you do a lot in-house, but all of that should be on a plan, at least a big recreational plan that attaches to our building plan.
I don't disagree that we should have also a plan for the outbuildings, but again, we are going through an annual assessment of those buildings with the staff, and if you want that to be, coalesced into one of the things that I'm trying to do, if this budget and future budgets, is to develop a 3-5 year capital improvement plan. We haven't had that before, and that's something we're trying to work towards, asking for departments to think 2-3 years out. So you're right, that is something that we've been working to develop. The 7 to 10 year plan is, those are more something you put into, strategic long-term thinking plans. But annual evaluation of all of our shelters and those kind of things are being done. As Director McLaughlin said, the study with Kluber focused on the buildings we use every day, and for that reason, the parks and the pool building was left out. Also, we had recently renovated it, but there are other buildings. We're building a new building out at Lufkin Pool, so we do annual assessments of all our buildings, including the ones that that have been assessed year to year, that are in the Lufkin, or that are in the Kluber study. And there's a list of items that Brian had to do, and so this is more comprehensive.
I'm not convinced that Clover has to do it. I understand what you guys are kind of saying, but it has to be somewhere, I think is what
Yes, of course.
Trustee Patrick is
Yes.
saying. And as trustees, it's important to our community that we see that plan for Parks and Rec forthcoming. So it's not about getting the plan in the same, it's the fact that you left out that whole chunk and we don't see it. And that has to be somewhere, it has to be clear, and there should be a plan for all our outbuildings. I understand it's kind of coming through the budget, but that's kind of something you got to see through the backside. So having a clear plan on the front saying, yes, every 2 years this might happen. We probably are going to change 3 bathrooms, toilets a year, whatever it is that you've been doing, just keeping that consistent thing in a space that we can see would be helpful.
It's time that the necessity to do a pool assessment, we really needed it because there wasn't one done. So that's the same thing we would want to do with the rest of our buildings. It's time to revisit that and do a new assessment on that with some of our new buildings and our outbuildings. It doesn't have to necessarily be with Kluber, but that would be the plan going forward. If it's an architect that specializes in assessing pools like we had in the past, that they can do that, and they can do the recreation portion of those. So it was similar to the pool assessment where we had a plan, these are the priority needs you need to do. Here's something you need to do in 3 to 5 years. Here's something 5 to 7 years to be aware of. And that's what we have. So we can certainly do that with the other buildings. I agree.
And we're going to get a community center too, and I don't know if that's going to fall under, it's not going to fall under Kluwer because they're going to do their job and leave. So you're going to have to do that again when that comes in, because that's going to require quite a bit of maintenance. Otherwise, we're going to have Iowa all over again at one point. Yeah. Yeah.
So just
yeah,
one, maybe 2 points of clarification. The report that we get at the end of the Kluber experiment is actually a working document. So it's actually a digital Excel-based spreadsheet where it outlays what needs to happen immediately, in a little bit, and then in the future. So as you said, as every year budgets get approved and work happens, those actual cells get updated and then push out then when that needs to happen again. So it's actually a working document. It's not just a piece of paper. So that, and then as new buildings come online, get added to the bottom of said spreadsheet. Oh, brand new building, great. I don't need to do anything for 10 years.
Right.
But we can build up reserves in order to accomplish what we know. So it's, yes, new building or building comes offline. Stop spending money on it. That goes away, goes to the bottom line. Additionally, just to point out, the liner was actually budgeted in this calendar year but wasn't accomplished, which is additional reason why we didn't put it on, because we thought we were actually completing this year. And because of the 2013, as they were moving down and accomplishing those tasks, that could have been tacked on independently of the Kluber deal. We put in what we haven't completed yet, pool liner, 10 years. So it's just behind the scenes that you don't see that, but that's what's going on.
Okay, so then the working document then should pull all this data.
It will.
Yeah,
That's-
all the recreation should flow into it. I mean, it doesn't have to be done till after they're done, but it should be in
Right.
there.
Yeah, and that'll be the document that Brian lives and breathes.
Okay.
So those other buildings be added to that so that we keep track of, I mean, the rec center is not part of the study, as you point out, for obvious reasons, but that doesn't mean it can't be added into a
I mean, I think
tracking.
everything should be on that same page,
Right.
right?
That is the end game, but we have to
Yeah.
get it first before we can manipulate it.
Yeah, I understand. So the rec center, obviously, it's not even built, so it's not there. The pool building is there. It was fixed 3 years ago, but you might just mention, okay, this is all good, and it's fixed 3 years ago, and this is, because something is gonna go wrong somewhere. I mean, the truth is, buildings go down, you do a lot in-house, but everything is gonna have some maintenance that is required over time.
Right, and the point of the whole study was that we can be ahead of it instead of having knee-jerk reactions and spend, to Greg's point, spending more than we needed to because we have an emergency. To plan, get quotes, budget for it, and implement is significantly cheaper than it is doing a crisis mode.
Trustee O'Fonnell.
Thank you. You said that the assessment was done in 2013 was it just the pool or was it the pool and the bathhouse and
Yes. it was
The whole
yes.
component.
Right.
Do we know what the life of an assessment typically is?
I'll have to check on that.
What the
yeah.
industry
It's-
standard might be? I don't know what that,
Might be
who that
10
would be.
years. I'll have to double check on
Okay,
that.
it'd be about 10
Yeah,
years.
So it's about time
Okay.
to do another one.
And do you know where we could access that?
It should be on the
assessment?
website.
On the website?
Yeah.
It is on the website.
So in 2015, as part of the Parks and Rec Commission, what we did was a master plan. We did a big survey that went in water bills. We had statistically significant amount of responses. We used those responses to build a master plan in 2015 to redo all the parks. We stack ranked them to see which ones needed the best, which ones were the best ones, the newest ones. We stack ranked those against all of the different facilities. We've already done, I think, 6 or 7 brand-new playgrounds in the last 7, 8 years because of that master plan. That was in 2015. It's like this thick. It shows you current state, gives you a whole rundown of all the different parks, what's wrong with them, what needs to be updated, what's not compliant. So that's what we're trying to do now here in Build Park is with that comprehensive plan. This is essentially the framework of that. So all the parks you go to in Villa Park, they're all fairly brand new. Facilities are pretty brand new, and it's because Lufkin failed. Lufkin failed because there was no long-term plan there. So when that was going down, we said, hey, how can we make sure that this doesn't happen to other parks, any kind of facilities? So we did that master plan 2015. I believe we're pretty close to finishing the rest of it. I think there's like 2 more parks left, and one of them being Lufkin, with essentially what's there now was something that was concepted 8 years ago. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we want you, keep on going.
Moving on. A few years back, I think it was during COVID, we stopped mailing the brochure and we put it online. It saves us some money. Everybody's used to going online to register. We do print several hundred brochures to have them, so if seniors or residents call in, we're able to mail those to them if they don't want to do online. They can get their brochure through the mail. Suzanne did mention the rec software. Our old rec software is probably 7 years old. It's not user-friendly at all. Folks have to call in. Our staff has to set up their account, then they give them a password, so the new rec software should alleviate that. It'll be a lot more user-friendly. Let's see, civic rec, soccer goals, again, we replace those every several years. We get the most use out of them as we can, and then when we start falling apart, we budget for new ones. We want to, looking ahead at the rec center, we want to hire somebody that has fitness certification. We also do want to hire somebody along with that fitness certification is hopefully be certified in Red Cross and life saving as well for lifeguards, so they can test and teach our lifeguards, get them ready for their certification classes. Let's say for the 2024 budget, we did budget the last quarter of the year for the rec center, since we'll hopefully be open in October. And I think that's it on that page, Suzanne. Thank you. Moving to parks, buildings, and grounds. So Brian's staff includes 7 full-time guys in the parks, ladies and gentlemen, actually, 5 seasonal, 2 full-time custodial, and as some of the other directors had mentioned, Brian's staff, he's a support department for the entire village. So Brian works closely with all the department heads. Steve Stapleton mentioned about doing the showers. So Brian's guys will help with the showers, construct the showers, not do the plumbing, but that's kind of under Brian's domain. So not only does he handle all the parks and does all the maintenance on the parks and the village buildings, he works hand in hand with each individual department head to find out what their needs are. So this is the time that he does that. And then during the budget year, he'll go out and replace carpet, flooring, HVAC if needed. We've had some plumbing issues, that type of thing. So he's the go-to guy for any kind of maintenance issues with buildings. We maintain 125 total acres, 100 acres at 15 park sites. We also maintain village buildings, like I mentioned, pumping stations, well houses, dead ends, rights-of-way, North Avenue, median, drainage areas, the Great Western Trail and the Prairie Path. We don't own those, the county does, but we maintain them for the county. We have the 10 playgrounds, 5 baseball fields and softball fields that we maintain. If we work with the school district, we do maintain their softball or baseball fields for Villa Park Youth Baseball as well. So on the 2023 project recap, Brian's guys assisted with the demolition of the community rec building, Lufkin Park. As we mentioned a couple of board meetings ago, they're going to be working and doing some of the work at Lufkin, doing the trail, the walking path. They did that over at North Terrace a few years ago when we did the walking path around there. And that'll save us a little bit of money on that project. For the PD, the police department, they repainted the building exterior, replaced the sewage ejection pumps, and the rooftop HVAC unit. The fire department, in the next few weeks, hopefully, I don't know if it started already, we're going to be working to replace the overhead door. In the fleet department, we need a roof replacement. That's a long time in coming, so knock on wood, and thank God that we're doing that. Jefferson pool improvements, what happened? We replaced the new main pool pumps. We replaced some of the big fundrill, as they're called, over at the pool. And we did, like I mentioned before, the concrete repairs on one area of the pool. Village Hall, we repainted the exterior here, and we replaced the rooftop HVAC units. So hopefully we won't need that window unit anymore. Of course, it's winter time, but we're coming up on winter. So, but for next late spring, early summer, we're going to have.
Well, and closed sessions in the cow room should not require us to open the windows. It was pretty brutal in there, and with the new HVAC system for this floor, that should be over.
So, and upstairs, it's more of central air kind of, where downstairs we'll still need the window units for staff, unfortunately. So, I mentioned fleet. Let's see, where am I at? Again, Brian's working with Director McLaughlin on the facility assessments, and thank you for those comments, because that's it's time to do the recreation portion and see how long the actual Jefferson pool, we can stretch out that life of the pool and do any necessary. We still have the checklist of the things that needed to be done, have been done, and hopefully we're at the end of that, and we'll do a new assessment for that and some other parks and rec buildings. And then for the NESDRA account, it's a special rec association, Northeast DuPage. There's 11 member bodies of the surrounding towns. We basically use the funds from that special rec account to do ADA accessible things within playgrounds, paths, playgrounds, and those type of amenities. For upcoming projects, again, we're going to complete the construction of the rec center, and we're meeting this week for a construction schedule for Lufkin Park. So as soon as we get the construction schedule, we'll send that to everybody, let you know. We want to break ground. Matter of fact, we'd like to do similar to what we did at Lions Park and have a groundbreaking ceremony Next Thursday at 5:30. We're doing it on Thursday because if the weather's iffy, we can postpone it to Friday. And hopefully, we'll send out an invite to everybody, but I think Thursday is the 26th, and Friday is the 27th. So if you can make it at Lufkin, we're going to do the similar thing, without the hard hats. Village Hall, and actually Village Hall and PD, we have to do elevator modernization. Village Hall needs plumbing improvements as well. The modernization is the software, is that correct, Brian, basically?
Essentially, you get a new elevator without removing within a box or the shaft.
It's the components, yeah, electrical. And those, the stuff that they have now, it's becoming obsolete. We're not going to be able to repair what we have, so we have to buy new things. As we mentioned before, at the fire stations, restroom renovations, HVAC boiler, garage bay, and flooring improvements. Jefferson Pool we talked about. Metro, we maintained the Metro station several years ago. We hired a contractual company to come out and maintain the area landscape, and they also do the 18 or so landscape beds along Ardmore. It's a lot of work, and the companies that we've hired, we've been really fortunate. They've done a really nice job for us. And then years ago, we did have a full-time custodian for Village Hall, the police department, community rec building. He retired to 2013 maybe. And so what we've been doing is using staff from our parks department. We've been using like a service master, contractual, and we found that the contractual from the staff that's in those buildings, the cleaning wasn't up to par, so we really want to get back to hiring a full-time staff to take care of those buildings. And especially with over at PD, it's we had a couple of companies, they were okay, but then, they have to go through the rigorous background checks, and it's sad to say that a lot of the folks that they wanted to work in PD couldn't pass the requirements. So we'll handle that internally. If we can get a full-timer, that shouldn't be an issue. And with that, that's all I have. Do you want me to go over fleet or Public Works? Or I can handle. Want me to handle? Oh, question?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. It is pertaining to parks. A few years ago, the board approved a 3% cannabis tax, divided up 1% for police, 1% for fire pensions, and then the other percent for parks. Now, we have the ability to track our pension payments. We know how much we're paying into pensions and how often and regular we do that. But do we have the ability to track where that 1% goes to parks? And is there a way to itemize that to see or visualize that 1% where it's being spent in that parks
That
budget?
1% was earmarked to use towards the rec center and or pool. So all that money is going to go towards the rec center.
Okay, so that 1%, we'll be able to break that down every time that we get our annual cannabis tax. We'll be able to say that 1%, we can show how it goes to the pool or the rec center and what it went towards?
It's going to go towards the rec center bill, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I also have a question about just Parks and Rec. You had mentioned for the new rec center, full-time program supervisor, adding a full-time program supervisor. Do we already have program supervisors, and if so, how many?
We do. We have 3 program supervisors.
Okay, so that would be bringing it up to 4?
It would be at the end of, if we're lucky enough to get it, yes, it would be bring up to 4, which would increase our programming capacity to do more programs.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Bert.
All right, do you want me to go over fleet, or you want Mike to? Okay.
Thank you, guys. As As you can see, mentioning fleet services will be moving to Public Works at the start of the new year. So I apologize, this is like mostly on Matt Free for most of this information. But we do currently have three full-time mechanics. Obviously, they service all of our vehicles for the village, which is broken out there. As you can see, 11 fire department vehicles, 32 police department vehicles, 3 recreationals, including 1 bus. Parks has 11, plus several small pieces of equipment that they normally maintain, including generators. And the fleet services has a little bit, and then we have the 59 public works vehicles. And that includes a lot of our specialty items, because we do have several pieces of equipment that we don't use on a daily basis, but we do use it quite frequently, all being maintained by our fleet services. Additionally, they do outfit a lot of our police cars. So when we do get new vehicles in our fleet, our fleet management division usually does all the outfitting themselves. So that included the 6 new police squad cars. They do a lot of the setup on the squad cars themselves, including the wiring, the outfitting of computers. They do track their jobs, so they've completed 771 jobs this year. And just kind of an overview of what we did this year is they got 6 new police cars. We got 1 new fire vehicle that I believe replaced the chief's vehicle.
Can you give it to the deputy chief, though?
He was just following Public Works lead. We did get 1 new Public Works pickup truck with the thankful to the board for allowing us to go to a local dealer to get that so we could get that purchased. And that's been outfitted. We were able to complete that all within the original budget, thanks to a lot of work with fleet by doing some shopping around with the aftermarket, I should say, not postmarket, aftermarket plow purchases. We did get new 1 Ford Escape with the local service. That was pushed in. We moved down to the deputy to replace some of our older administration vehicles. Parks has a dump truck that may show up this year, may show up next year. Unfortunately, that is, I think you'll see on the next slide, some of the issues that fleet's running into. And then this year, I believe, did have the issue with the fuel prices skyrocketed, so they do keep track of that. They budget for $80,000, as we do have a 10,000-gallon gasoline unleaded tank in the ground and a 4,000-gallon diesel tank that all the village vehicles utilize for the village. So Matt keeps track. We do go through a joint purchase for that competitive bid for the fuel so that we can try to maintain the most competitive price. I think it looks, what he has is we have $329 and $397 with the average prices. Like I kind of mentioned previously, the challenges, lead times, I think the board has experienced this year. Obviously, I think it was brought up with several of the departments. The fire department, obviously, with their fire truck that we ordered, I think, over 1.5 years ago, and we're hopeful that will show up this year. We have the public works truck that we ordered earlier this year that we are hopeful to get by next 2024's winter season. We're hopeful to have it in service by that time. And then we've had issues with just acquiring squad cars. I know the police department's done a lot of work with fleet to find squad cars. Public Works, we've done the same thing. For the upcoming budget, we're budgeting 80,000 gallons. That seems to be, I think, where we historically kind of hit the last several years, and using that average price to kind of come up with that budget number. For this next year, we've already entered into the lease with Enterprise, so that has been set. So we do have 12 new vehicles coming. We have 3 new, and that includes the 3 new squad cars to try to get them back on a rotation. And then 1 new fire car will be ordered. We do have what was mentioned earlier, so the fire department, the ambulance, being the chassis. And then we do have some vehicles that were left over that were due to increase in prices, outseated our budget, which I believe was the tractor for parts. And I can leave that maybe up to Greg or Brian a little bit to explain that.
Can I interrupt you just for a second? That we also are going to get a request at the next board meeting to purchase another vehicle for the police department. This is to to replace, we have a detective car that needs replacing and/or we also have to send a vehicle with the officer who's going to go into the federal cooperation program. We looked through our fleet and there was nothing that was acceptable, so that we have now come to the conclusion that we have to purchase one more car, which we can fund with the sale of the old Charger, the Hellcat vehicle. So we're going to be all right. We have money for it, but when it comes to you, yes, we know we're getting 12 new vehicles in the lease, but this is another vehicle that we need now, so.
Is that going to be part of the enterprise thing or just separate?
It's separate. It's completely separate. That's why I wanted to give you a heads up. So if there's confusion next week, at least I hope I relieve some of it. Sorry to interrupt.
No, by all means. I think that's all we had for fleet. If there's any other questions, I think the majority, it's been kind of predetermined a lot with that enterprise lease. A lot of the truck and vehicle replacements were already kind of planned for this next fiscal year. So the budget's kind of set with that. Public Works, what I know. So we pretty much cover everything else that hasn't been presented tonight. We actually are the department that interacts with the residents on a daily basis, whether they know it or not. And so we do cover streets and forestry. So the parkway trees are streets, our storm sewers, our sanitary sewers, our water distribution, wet weather treatment facility, and then coming into fleet. So that org chart is a little outdated. I just haven't updated it because we have several changes occurring. And additionally, we should probably make mention, we do have the classification meetings I've been holding with the union, so some of the structures may be adjusted in this upcoming budget year. So currently, as we stand, we have 29 full-time employees, and then we carry up to 7 seasonal employees. I think we had 6 this past season. Our goal is to try to get 7. That help offsets vacations and helps our crews be a little bit more effective and efficient in the summertime. Obviously, being able to have more hands, we can do that. And it also helps encourage the next generation for public works service. And this year's budget, and I'm forecasting the next year's, we didn't quite get to it this year, but we'll put in 4 seasonal employees just for hydrant painting. A lot of our hydrants that are newer hydrants, we actually is a baked coating that's red that lasts like 25, 30 years. Some of our older hydrants are not, and they're looking a little shabby, so we like to hire some seasonal work. We used to historically do that. And then we clean and paint those hydrants to make them more appealing. As we did have, I think, adopt a hydrant, and a lot of those paintings are now have aged out a little bit and don't look the best. And then we're trying to get 2 engineering interns. That may be tough. That might be wishful thinking on my end. Engineering is very competitive right now. And it's very hard to get engineers, as we do have an opening, but the goal would be to get maybe an intern that we could maybe bring in, they like it, and then want to work full-time following their graduation. Including public works garbage, so I threw this slide up there. Obviously, we have LRS. That contract was just renewed this past June. So we do have a 5% increase set for that fee, and that's a pass-through fee. That's how the monthly bills are calculated. And that includes your recycling cost. We do provide the household solid waste. We do have leaves and brush. And mentioning, because we are coming up that time, just as a plug, we do have the free leaf pickup. I believe that starts next week, if I have my dates right. And that will be 7 weeks of free leaf pickup in that contract. And a little bit of a change for our residents, that leaf pickup is free leaf pickup, meaning you can put it in a 35-gallon container, you can put it in your craft bags, it's all free. I think before you had to still have a sticker if you're trying to use a container, but if you use a 35-gallon container, that is free. We do ask, we have stickers, I believe, at Village Hall and Public Works that identify those cans as yard waste, to put one of those stickers on it, so it's a little bit easier for it. Also in our garbaging budget, we do have the electronic recycling, that is every 3rd Saturday of the month. And the garbage budget includes the cost of billing. So overall, we're projecting a budget of well over $1.8 million. and so it's an overall 6% increase, just because looking at the numbers for the past year, we're starting to see a little bit of antique cost in the cost of the electronic recycling in the building. Overall, these are kind of the corporate funds that we utilize for streets and forestry. We're hopeful with the BSA software that we maybe use these into more, one or two budgets, not the 6 that are shown. But what this slide is trying to demonstrate is that we're pretty much keeping the budget on par with what we budgeted this year. So we're not really looking for too much net increases, if zero at all on these. And the next slide, I believe this speaks to Trustee Kozar's question. So the fund is 1025, I think 28. I can find the page for you, because it's not real easy to find. For your forestry. So yeah, sorry, it's 1020, it would be page 38 in your package. And that line item falls under tree removal and trimming, because we do not have a tree planting line item, but we do not really contract tree trimming anymore for removal, so we've kind of shifted that budget cost into tree plantings. This year, we've ordered 57 parkway trees that we've been installing the last couple of weeks, and these are all installed by our PW crews here in-house. That does not include any of our capital projects, so our Monterey, our Michigan, those projects, we've modified our procedure when we do design and our policies, so we do look for infill on those projects so that those are contracted trees. So I believe we'll be close to over 90 trees again this year for planting total in the community. However, that is still not a one-to-one. I don't think we'll ever achieve a one-to-one, because we do look at some spacing requirements, those sort of things, power lines that we may take down trees that we may not plant. Because I believe up to now, we've already removed 107 trees for this year, and I'm assuming we'll probably take several more. So I'm assuming we'll probably hit the 125, 130 range for the year again for tree removals. Next year, we put in $20,000. That $20,000 will probably get us another 60 trees for plantings. And that, talking with our crews this year, 60 trees. What we tried to do this year was a spring planting and a fall planting to try to alleviate to maximize the amount of trees with in-house crews and kind of alleviate our crews. Unfortunately, this spring, we had the equipment failure with our apprentice truck falling or breaking down. And the trees that we use, that truck is needed to kind of pick them up and set them on the grounds for our crews. So we are kind of shooting for 60 to see how we can handle that. That would probably be 20 so trees in the spring and then 40 in the fall. And we do try to do a diverse planting. We do look with the local nursery to look at what trees they have on and still pick within a reasonable price to try to diversify some of the trees. So we're not just planting all maples, all oaks. We look to diversify some of those species in there. Yes.
I have just a quick question for you. If a resident has one of their parkway trees removed, are they at all able to come to the village and ask to purchase their own tree and plant it? Or what is the process for that to happen?
So we kind of have probably 3 ways to doing it. The 2 are traditional and what we have out there now is the adopter tree.
Okay.
And the adopter tree it's up to, I think we increased the fee in the last 2 years to $250 to cover pretty much, it covers about 90% of the cost of the tree. And then we do that in the spring or in the fall. We kind of cut off so we can provide a little bit better customer expectation. And they come in, they fill out that application, and then when it comes to plantings, like recently, I think we had 6 applicants over the summer. We've now purchased those trees. We give them the list of trees that are available, then they can pick from that list, and we'll come out and plant it when they give the deposit of $250. The second option is you can just request a tree. We keep track of people that requested a tree, especially from trees that have been removed several years ago. And then when we do our plantings, we do try to hit as many of those places as we can, but that's kind of a running list, so it's kind of oldest to newest. So you may not get it in that year, this fiscal year planting, but it might be next year's. Our goal is to start reestablishing that. And then we had on case-by-case worked with residents that wanted to install their own tree, and then we worked with them to let them know what types of trees are allowed in the parkways and which ones. That usually requires a little bit of a bond just to make sure that they don't damage any of our public utilities or anything in the ground. That's why we try to prefer to do it with the adopt-a-tree program, so that we can kind of make sure that the spacing is correct, because we want good tree growth. Some of them are spaced too close, and then that will they start competing for the same sunlight, and we don't want that. So we do allow that on a case by case, but we typically prefer the adopt-a-tree method, and all that information can be found at the Public Works or online.
Thank you.
The 60 trees that that's not including the
That's not,
adopted
sorry,
program.
I didn't put that on there. That's not including any of our capital projects. That would be just our PW crews install.
And the adopted trees, that would be in addition to those?
Yes, typically. The 57 includes the 6 adopted trees that we
Oh, it
have
does,
this year.
okay.
I think we, in the Arbor Day tree, which is financed by the Environmental Concerns Commission, usually donates the tree every year. I think we budgeted 20,000, and so that's an estimated on the cost, because the cost of trees did go up a little bit this year based on previous years. So they were around 200 to 300, and now they're about 250 to 350 is in the range that we purchased the trees for. Additionally, this year, we've changed our operation slightly. So in the wintertime, when we're hopefully not snow plowing or doing some of the winter operations, we have established trimming zones to provide a little bit more expectation and try to hit the trees a little bit more often for the residents. And so we've broken up the village into the 5 zones that you see above, and our crews will go up and down the streets doing some basic trimmings and then removal of the dead trees. And that way we can maybe get a little bit more on top of our tree trimming that's been kind of deferred over the last several years. And then in the summertime, we will move back to our work orders where people call in trees, where we'll then assess the tree, assess the branches. If they're dangerous, obviously they will be removed right away. If not, we'll try to get to them on a timely basis as we can. So that's a little bit different. So you expect to see them in Zone 2, which is the north middle, I believe. Stormwater functions as its own enterprise fund. So we do have stormwater fees. Typically, we get about $581,000. I don't think we've increased that fee for several years. But we have gotten some grants. We're wrapping up the Jackson Pond expansion, so that was a $4 million reimbursable. But included in that Jackson Pond is the Jackson area improvements, which we'll speak about here shortly. And then we just received a DCO grant for stormwater improvements of $288,500 that we're kind of working on trying to get those plans put together to do through this winter, early winter program. Additionally, we do have the 50% drainage assistance program. That's the backyard drainage program. And then we do have some revenues from stormwater buyout fees, and that's kind of pending some of the economic development that Mark spoke about earlier. A lot of they have a ability in some locations to buy out detention, which those fees then go back in to help provide some more of the regional detention. Our expenses, operations were not very much, so most of that goes into the drainage assistance programs or other capital improvements. The ones that we kind of have planned this year is the ones that will, Jackson area improvements. This is Wisconsin from Jackson to Washington, and then down Madison to Addison, and then Addison from Madison to Washington. What this does is ties the new, oversizes the sewer to bring all that stormwater to the new Jackson Pond expansion and overflow. I believe that was in 2013, where there was about 80 residents that we see flooding during that flash flood, so this will help alleviate that location, and it's kind of the last step in the sugar drainage basin plan. And then we have Yale. Yale is pretty much designed, however, that one does not have any external funding, so that's always kind of as budget allows. If we have budget, we're ready to go, but it will be shovel ready. But we kind of hold that one just because there's no loans, grants, or any external funding available for that one. Water supply. Obviously, we have the rate study. We set the rates. We're anticipating about $5.7 million this year. And we're looking at maybe transferring $2 million out of the utility sales tax if we can have all these projects. Additionally, we do have $600,000. That's a reimbursable from the DuPage County. That is a CDBG grant, HUD money. So there's a lot of paperwork associated with that one. But we do have that program for Iowa and Vermont, which construction will probably start next construction season, knowing that they're looking at the weather. Operational, we're about 2.5 million. Our purchase of water, as pointed out by Finance Director, Mr. Howard, is purchased through DWC. Those rates set. We do have a contract with DWC that will be coming up in 2024. So that 3 million is a little bit of an anticipating of what our prices are currently. But the DWC's contract with the city of Chicago for in the water district is due in 2024, so it means we have to renew our contract with DWC. Hopeful that there's a few things in the works. DWC is looking at a study of obtaining their own water from Lake Michigan, running their own treatment facility and trunk line, or additionally trying to look at the deal that Joliet got so that we should mimic the same deal as Joliet. I believe DuPage is the largest water purchaser from Chicago, so hopefully rates will not increase. So that 3 million is budgeted based on anticipating paying about the same rate that we have now based on the information DWC has given us. Some of the capital items that we have included in this is joining the trend of updating our technology. We did have some, you see up there I put the full word, but SCADA improvements between water and wastewater. Our control systems, the program that runs them is outdated. So we're looking to upgrade. We began that process this year, but it's probably going to bleed into next year before we pick a vendor and get it implemented. Additionally, we're looking at upgrading our asset management software. Our software is a custom-made software that is probably 15 years old now, and is specific to Village Park. So if that support disappears, we have no support for it. So we're looking for more of a more current. It's still very paper heavy and looking to go a little bit more tech friendly and mobile friendly. Additionally, we're budgeting census analytics. I just kind of pointed that out. With that, what that does is we're now 100% radio reads on our water meters. So we no longer have to drive around to get water reads. It's all remote off our towers through our census. So we're looking at maybe providing a customer service portal that they can sign up and they can view their own water meter and their usage through an app or online to help with customer service. If they think they have high usage, different things, they can set up their own alerts. So that was included in this budget. And then we continue to do our system-wide meter replacements to the high accuracy meters, utilizing in-house staff and budgeting. I believe we budgeted about $225,000 to purchase meters so that we can install them. We're roughly 40% replaced into high accuracy, and like I said, we're 100% now on radio reads versus car doing mobile reads.
Real quick one, on the census analytics support, right now our strategy is to put that cost into all, to spread that cost among all customers as opposed to offering it as something that, people can pay for. Our thinking is that people who will need this software it's going to not depend upon how much money you have. In fact, sometimes if you have older plumbing, you're going to need to be able to look for leaks and detection, that sort of thing. And maybe even more important to those people who might not choose to pay for the extra cost of this analytics support. So by making it a cost to the entire utility, our benefit is one of the things that IEPA and looks for is the minimal amount of lost water. So what we buy, we sell, and to keep that difference less than 10%. And we've made some improvements, and we've gotten under that number. We want to stay under that number, but reduce it as much as possible. And so we think that strategy is the best strategy. I mean, if you guys have a different thought about that, let us know. But that's the way we're proceeding. So.
Yeah, just go.
I just wanted to know the census, the analytics, which I love the idea, that's good and all that. I want to know, how it particularly is gonna work with the resident. That's what I wanna know.
So we'd roll it out. I believe it's like, I've seen it more on the mobile side. So currently, we have access as a village that we can remote into any meter now, and we can see its usage. The new meters, the Omni Elect, or the Omni Pearls, we can see, it sends out, we have it set up for every 4 minutes, it sends out the message and we can download. So we can almost see real-time usage minute per minute on those, because that's how those sensors are. If you have the older meters, it only takes over every 1,000 gallons, so it's a lot less intuitive. But like right now with the new Omni Pearls, we have alarms set up that triggers our customer service person if there's a high flow somewhere that has one of those meters, that it gives alert so that we can, over a certain period, obviously there could be ups and downs very rapidly for actual usage, but if there's a continuous high flow, so we can reach out to the resident to say, you may have a leak, you need to look for it. Also for water theft, we do have that occurring, that if we've noticed some people that got shut off, they turn it back on, we see usage, it alerts us that they're not supposed to have alert usage, and now we can see that they have usage so that we can check for water theft. And so the residents should have the same access. They won't get it to every meter, they'll get it to their meter. So they should be able to see a lot of the same reports that we can get as a village right on their phone or on their computer.
And how does that work? Do they have to look it up? Because I mean, honestly speaking, it's great to be able to look at it, but I doubt everybody's gonna look at it. They probably want something that it sets off. Will it?
I believe
Will there be some ability to, when the meter just goes haywire, it's suddenly, we can sign up to, send a message or whatever, your meter's going haywire.
We saw this software earlier last year, but I believe it's set up to be on your meter, and you can set up a few alerts.
Few alerts, okay.
Yeah,
That's
like
what
that,
I wanna know.
Your water's
Because
being...
I think that, when they do the rollout, that might be important that the residents know that they should go in, set alerts, either send me a message on my phone or text or whatever, so that they have that ability. So I just,
What we have now, when our customer service rep, Dan Coulter, goes out, he's doing a great job. He has a laptop or iPad, and he can pull up those usage and show the residents their last 12 months, their usage, those sort of things to help when they think water is, the water bills maybe not be correct, those sort of things. It's very helpful to see that information, and that same information, then the residents can see their 12 months of usage over time.
because a lot of times the water usage goes up from a leak, as you know, like your toilet doesn't work properly, you're out of town for months, and then, it's just a really high bill. And it would be nice to be able to get that message wherever you are, for the residents of the park. So,
And we can get some more information on that.
yeah,
That was
so,
kind of
that,
an ask.
and what the process is of setting up those alerts, we'll have to send out in a proper manner.
If we roll it out, yeah.
When we roll it out.
If it's approved and we roll it out, there'll be definitely have to do a lot of broadcasting information through social media, the website, probably some how-to videos. I believe Census has all that information.
And finally, hand-holding by staff for individuals who missed every single message we sent them, no matter how we sent it.
Yeah, I was going to request that if the residents are going to be asked to share the cost of the census analytics support, I'm hoping that we could, and I'm requesting that much like you did with LRS, I'm hoping that we could put together like a campaign before it rolls out, letting people know what they're paying for, what's going on. With the MC squared, the electric that we rolled out there, I think we could have done a little bit better job on communicating the benefits of that to our residents. So I'm just asking that we take a little bit of time to communicate this to our residents, what it means and what that cost associated with the analytic support means and how it benefits to them. Thank you.
Okay, good.
I'm also thinking if it has a technology component, perhaps we can partner up with the library staff and have somebody available to be able to just like, here's how you download it on your iPad or whatever they need to do, because they have longer hours than the village does.
That's a pretty good idea generally. And everything has a tech component to it.
It's partner, wastewater. You use the water, it goes down the drain, now have wastewater. So there was still user charge based on our rates. We're projecting about $4.5 million of user charges. And additionally, you have a separate combination sewer separation fee to help fund some of the loans. We're looking at 417. If you look at that number, that's a big number. The IPA loans that we projected, I don't think we'll get it all. And we won't get it all this year because it'll take a couple seasons to be completed. But we have a couple big projects that have been working on to try to get to residents. And so we would probably be loaning $11.7 million. I believe, Chuck can correct me if I'm wrong, but the IPA loans do not go against our cap because they are funded through the EPA and they're user-based. So that doesn't hurt our debt capacity as a village. Those are kind of separate. Then additionally, we'll utilize some utility sales tax to fund those projects. And with that, we have about 1.9 in the operating system. A little bit of highlights on that. We are requesting in this year, speaking of maintenance plans, a wet weather flow facility assessment and feasibility study. That facility has been neglected for several years and it needs a lot of improvements. However, I'd like to look at that facility to see if it can be used in a different capacity or maybe an alternate capacity than instead of just replacing parts that are needed here and there. What is the actual need and how can we utilize it most effectively to make more targeted use of our taxpayers' dollars? So we do have some money in there to go out for a request for qualifications to get some engineering firms that are specialized in wastewater treatment facilities to take a look at it. As we do have one of the more unique facilities just being wet weather, that it doesn't run 24/7, only runs in rain, and then it's indoors versus being exposed tanks, which creates a lot of challenges. So we'd like to do that this year and kind of do it in conjunction with Salt Creek as they do some improvements at their facility coming up in the next several years.
I know you and I had talked about this previously, about possibly Salt Creek taking this over. Is that still a possibility?
I think there's a lot of talks that need to occur. I think some talks have been generated beginning this year, I think with utility billing. I think that's where we start. And I think the manager, finance director, Howard and I met with some of their staff looking at that, realizing the age of their staff and some of the challenges are upcoming in their near distance. I think some of those questions, those discussions should start occurring. It's probably should start occurring in the next several years, or this upcoming year, probably.
Okay, thanks.
Salt Creek is looking at doing several improvements to their facility over the next 5 years as well. Going back this, we will now have 7 IEPA loans that we're repaying. We do have one coming off the books next year. In 2024 is our last payment. So that's good. But we do have several more that needs to be done. The capital expenses is $12 million. A lot of that is also we will have this upcoming in the next probably board meeting or so, another discussion about the sewer reimbursement programs and some of those changes. Like I said, in conjunction with water, our SCADA controls both water and wastewater. So that's through here, and then our combination projects, which is included in our capital plan, which I believe is the next slide. So what everyone's waiting for, right? The capital improvement. These are some of the projects, just high-level map, kind of showing some of the projects that have been done over the years throughout the village. I got it. And then what we did is, at the end of 2022, and then it rolled into early 2023, is we took an analysis of the rating of our roads. This is more of what's called a passer rating. It's more of a visual. This kind of takes into account how many cracks, the overall general condition of the surface of the road, to kind of break it down into qualities. I won't get into what's deemed residential, secondary, but it kind of broke them out based on some of the priorities and then kind of weighted it so we can see. This was the rating as of February. So this does not include any capital improvements that we completed this year. So what we're planning to do is utilize this, overlay it with our existing capital plan. A lot of the roads that are rated in red and orange are included in our capital plan because these are a lot of the roads that we know are in bad shape, but we also need sewer separation or water mains underneath, so they've been kind of deferred until we could get funding for the underground. And then what we're planning to do is then try to look for the gaps where we don't have planned for roads that may need resurfacing, need crack fill, to better utilize our dollars to be effective to increase the percentage of roads that we have in good condition. And we'll probably be looking to start utilizing some of our MFT funding for this. As our MFT funding has been increasing over the last several years with the lockbox amendment that we referred to, we probably do need to utilize that for more of our street resurfacing, a little bit of our bigger but not quite big capital improvements.
Can interrupt really quickly 1 second. So when you get if we publish lists about what's in the red, orange, yellow, et cetera, one thing it's important to remember is sometimes it's better use of the funds to do an Ardmore or a other major street when it's only in the yellow, as opposed to getting, Jackson Street. Well, Jackson's a pretty heavy traffic road, but something that's a tertiary or very, a dead end road or something like that that's in the orange or red, because if you have to rebuild major roads, then you can get into much greater expense. Now, we have mostly a grid system, so it's not as obvious, but the condition that Wisconsin is in is something you would like to avoid because the cost goes up incredibly when you have to rebuild an entire street rather than doing overlay or rejuvenation. So, yes.
Yes.
I understand what you're saying, Manager Harline, about, some of the bigger roads that they have to be done. It's more traffic and so on, and they're weighted probably by the amount of traffic that goes through them, how much they wear down, so on and so forth. However, I think it would be useful to know when some of the streets it feels like they never get done, right? So, I mean, it may be just a psychological thing, not necessarily the truth. So it could be helpful to have a map when those streets were actually done in the past and have a mapping of that, whenever it was. It might be 25 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 years ago. Sometimes a street was done, but that was just, the weather got to it and it's got potholes,
Correct. I believe like what you're seeing now on Harvard, it was done previously, but the surface was not holding up.
Yeah.
So we're trying to hit it before the base deteriorates, so we don't get into the condition of Wisconsin. I think that's what the manager's trying to say, is sometimes it's beneficial to hit a street that may be in a little bit better condition than the worst rated streets, because we can get more miles done than doing the ones that are really bad. We do have that. It's not fully up to date. I think we need to put the last several years in, but we do have a map tracking a lot of the capital improvements that have been done on the streets. Then I think on the next slide, we do been tracking what we've been done with the referendums. So with the referendums,
yeah, I think just as like a zonal map that they do for zoning, we need a street zonal map, like when it was done, how it was done, and maybe traffic,
yes,
even a table like this.
Yeah, so this table is really hard to see, so you don't have to zoom in. That's just for reference. So those are all the streets that were included in the referendum. We do have some of those maps. We will work to continue to update them. But so far what we have done is 77%. And I would even say this is still dated. We didn't get this year's numbers all the way included in these. So we're slightly more than 77% completed because we have done a portion of Michigan, we have done Monterey. And so those portions are not included, but the remaining over 20% are under design. And we'll probably have designs completed by the end of this winter. Which only really leaves 1%, and I'll tell you what that 1% really is Yale. We haven't got to Yale because we need to do all the other portions of the Wisconsin sewer separation to even get to Yale to separate that sewer. That's why that has not been under design yet. All the remaining streets are under design. The ones that we have planned, Iowa Street will be done from Vermont to Plymouth. That is included in the CBG funding, so that will be done. And then Jackson Street from Edison to Yale will be done as well, because that's a resurfacing that we were holding off on as due of the Jackson Pond and the ECC. So those are ready to go. Included in the Jackson, what we're calling the Jackson area improvements would be Wisconsin Avenue from Jackson to Washington. So we do have funding for that. We're working on acquiring the last bits of easements to let that project go out to letting. And then we are hopeful, and then we will also do Wisconsin from Vermont to Stone this year with referendum funding. Wisconsin Avenue from Washington to Kenilworth is, we're hopeful, that requires some significant IEPA loan to separate the sewers. And so we are seeking IEPA loan funding this upcoming, after January 1, that window opens, and we're looking to hit around that window. We do have this whole listing on our website if you want to look at it in more detail.
You're talking Yale, that would imagine is from Jackson all the way to Park, or is it just Jackson to Washington? Do you know offhand? If you don't know,
I think it's from Jackson to Park.
Yeah,
would be the inclusion with the Washington sewer separation. The one farther up to Kenilworth is separate because it will not tie to that same sewer, I believe.
Great. Okay, thanks.
I think it's right here on this map is, I think, the portions I'm referring to. So the portion in green has just been completed. That's the Monterey portion that has now been completed. We do have design on that second portion from, I shouldn't say, we're wrapping up design on the second portion from Washington to Summit. And that will be also needed alone. That one is the big one. As we've seen the last year or two, construction costs have greatly increased, 30%. So what was projected to be maybe an $8 million project is now projected to be about $10 million. So that's going to be a request probably before the board if we can get the EPA loan to seek a loan funding on that. Additionally, we have those, you can see on the left-hand side, Wisconsin, that is wrapping up design. We anticipate design be complete probably in January. And what we did is, due to the IEPA loan process being so cumbersome, we've packaged that with the small portion of Westmore from St. Charles up to Division, I believe, because that's a little bit of piece that needs to be separated up there. So overall, we're currently about 80, I think that's 88% completely separated. And then we have another like 6%, if I can see my small numbers right, that's being in design, be ready to be completed, pending loans by springtime. So that would bring us into the 90s percentiles. I will caution, there is some portions of our combination sewer that we cannot separate. So we'll get to like 99, 98% separated. And without putting in an expensive lift station just for stormwater, we left a few inlets in some locations online. For our upcoming, what we completed this year, we did the road maintenance. Obviously, the board just approved our reclamite of 105 that helps preserve those roads to keep them in green longer. The tri-trail construction began a couple weeks ago, so you'll see that portion tied up. I think we're anticipating them getting to Villa, and then completing the portion west of Villa probably in the springtime is what we're anticipating right now due to weather. We finished our rebuild. That's the 1.16. That was the Rebuild Illinois grant funding that we received. That will spend our money in the timely fashion because that money had to be spent by 2025. And as mentioned by Manager Harline, to make sure we spent that money, the bids came in favorable. We increased the amount of sidewalk on Cornell to make Cornell a lot more passable up and down the street. We're wrapping up our phase 1 on our Villa Avenue Bridge. That's probably one of our highest complaint getter on potholes in the village, believe it or not. So we within the phase 1, and that we did receive, I believe, 80% funding for that through the state, through the bridge replacement. And we'll hopefully be done with that phase 1 about January. We've also completed the grade separation feasibility study. We should have the draft report to me the end of this week. I'll review it, and then we'll get the final draft out to the board and to the public on the website. And then we completed that blank, it's just to build suspense, but I missed that. We completed about 1.8 miles of sidewalk improvements this year. Not as much as we wanted because it's the most expensive. I think we still spent about $500,000 when you included all the capital projects with that sidewalk. And then last year we did complete nearly 2, because the prices were so good on Monterey that we were able to do all of Monterey sidewalk with that project. So I believe we're in the neighborhood of 16, or about 18 miles since 2014 when we started tracking sidewalk. If you want to go next one. Additionally, with the capital improvements, we completed Michigan and Vermont. That was a 1.4, where we got $600,000 in CDBG grant money. We've been doing some water main connections, or water main construction in-house. So we recently just purchased the material to try to connect Beverly to Douglas and the Metro to loop those lines, because they're all dead ends. Our crews earlier this spring, we spent $50,000 buying the material, and we ran the new line down Wildwood from Euclid back to the Bend to help with the new Lion Center, recreational center, and then possibly tie in with any improvements if when the union comes in. So that water line will be all looped and new, and help feed the fire suppression systems in those locations. I think our crew is wrapping up the tie-ins this week, so that's all ready to go online. And then we are completing the design of the new water main in Bierman Avenue and Myrtle Avenue, from Sunset to North, Terry Madison. We probably anticipate to use that as an IEPA potable water loan. That probably won't go until 2025, because the potable is a little bit more competitive recently with all the lead lines and all those items, and the paperwork is slightly different, so we're working on that portion. For rehabilitation, we completed Monterey. That was about $4.4 million. We're completing the design from south Wisconsin, like we talked about, and the separation of sewer. And then we are wrapping up the sewer master plan. Our last plan was a 2008 plan, and we completed about 90% of the improvements on there, so it was time to update what's needed for moving forward for planning in the future. What are we planning for 2024? Oh, wait, we still got more, sorry.
You did a lot more this year.
We did a lot. Jackson Pond was completed. We do have the design of the area that we plan to go out for bids, hopefully early spring. That was all included in the FEMA grant, the $4 million FEMA grant. Lufkin Pond was expanded, and that was funded by the DuPage County, thankfully. And then we've completed the Dizelle of Yale from Jackson to Madison, which is stormwater and referendum updates. So just a kind of a map showing where those are at. What we're planning for this year is the completion of the tri-trail construction. That was, you're aware, STP means Surface Transportation Program. That's your federal highway transportation bill that gets funded out through CMAP and DMMC. We have planned $670,000 for road maintenance in this budget. That includes some resurfacing, reclamite, some striping and crack sealing. We didn't get to our striping this year, so we do have a significant amount of striping that needs to be updated, refreshed in the community. And then doing some resurfacing on North Wisconsin for Monterey Ridge. That's part of the College Streets. That is a poorly rated road that needs much love. And then Jackson Avenue from Addison to Yale. For the water system, nope, other way. No, that's right. So we have the Iowa and Vermont. And that's CDBG funded. We do have the $60,000 that we talked about earlier. And then we do have the design for Harvard from Plymouth to Ridge design that's shovel ready. But with the cost of 1.6, we do not have external funding associated with that. So that's going to be looking at if we can afford it with current revenues and reserves to try to fund it in-house to get that portion completed. And then additionally, we were programming the Princeton Water Tower to be recoded. Previously, that was planned in like 2022. We deferred it because costs went up. But that is, if you all you have to do is drive by and look at it, know that it's in time of need for resurfacing and recoding. It'll be a similar process to what we did over here on Home Avenue in 2020. Unfortunately, costs have gone up. Sewer separation, we are planning Wisconsin from Washington to Kenilworth. That's about $5 million now. So we need a loan to cover a good portion of that. And then the Washington sewer separation, which would be about a $10.5 million loan. Obviously, the Washington will probably take 2 construction seasons, so over a year to complete. And then I think the next one is stormwater, Jackson area, and then drainage improvements. We have the $288.5 from DCO grant, and then so those are kind of ones. I think the last one is streets. These are more of ones, these are the streets, this is our planning stages. This is where we're planning to begin design. So, I'll go from memory. We have what's planned already is we have Villa Avenue from Wildwood to North. We have STP, Surface Transportation Funding from DMMC funded, and that's funded in 2025. So we have to move on that. There will be some large numbers coming from that, as we do need to acquire some temporary easements and some permanent right-of-way as we're going to build a multi-use path on the west side of Villa. So to tie that all back in, we will need some of that. Unfortunately, when you have federal money, the paperwork to purchase temporary easements and right-of-ways is quite extensive, and will probably cost more than purchasing the actual easements. I wish I didn't have to say that, but it is true. Also, we are looking at partnering with Elmhurst. Elmhurst is looking to improve their section of Illinois 83 and Monroe, kind of where our Walmart is. They have funding in 2028. They've reached out to us. We thought it was probably prudent to join in their phase 1 to look at the western side. With how that's configured, and any development over there is just going to make that our side, the west side of that access road, more congested. We felt it was prudent to join in and look at possible improvements. That way we are also eligible to try to get surface transportation funding by being a multi-agency funded project. Additionally, we received awarding for Ardmore through DMMC's STP for Ardmore from St. Charles to Madison in 2027, and then from St. Charles to North in 2028. I think those are correct. So due to the IDOT federal requirements, it takes several years to begin that process, so we have to begin what's called phase 1, the the preliminary engineering, this upcoming year. And then we plan to go to phase 2, actual design on the Villa Avenue Bridge this upcoming year, but we would probably seek additional funding from the state for bridge replacement funding to help pay for that. And then we did throw in money for the grade separation, possible phase 1 study that was presented with from CDM Smith. They have reached out to the ICC, and there is possible funding for phase 1 studies. That call for projects comes open in January, so our goal is to seek funding for that, if so desired by the board. So we put in some money for our share if that is successful, knowing that that's a big ask, to not fund it without any external funding. Water, I think we talked about some of those, and then these are the additional wastewater components that's already been discussed. I think I can ask any questions. That's a lot. We completed a lot. I'm aggressive. I'm trying to get as much infrastructure improvements done, but I can answer any questions on the public works side anyone may have. Yes.
Hi, just from a collection point of view, just like you said, sidewalks completed. Last year you had road, Miles Road completed. It would be nice to know those numbers as well and just keep a track of that.
We do.
Yeah.
I think we published it.
Yeah. it's not in, I know you probably had it, you had it last year, so.
Yeah, so we did, it's supposed to be in there, we did about 1.8 miles this past year. Previous years, we've done about 2. I think total since like 2014, we're around 18 miles. What I did put up there, which I probably should, is we are looking to increase the sidewalk capital plan. Historically, it was like 100,000, then went to 125. I think we did 150 this past year. I am seeking $250,000 to do sidewalks. My original goal was to try to target an area and go assess it first. However, have so many requests, I think we're near $300,000 in our request for 50/50 program. So that 250 still will not, it's a big bump up, and a lot of that is utilizing the utility sales tax transfers. But it will get quite a bit of our backlog off and try to get back into a normal basis that if you apply for a 50/50, we should fund you within a year to get that done. And then continue hopefully at that programming level for the next 5+ years, where then we'll go assess areas to look for trip hazards, to eliminate trip hazards and deteriorated sidewalk, and then address them the following year. We don't want to get too far out on what we can actually budget, plan, and replace, but to provide residents, okay, we looked at this area, improved this area, next we don't look at this area, and so on, and so on.
I wasn't actually talking about sidewalks and the miles, I think you already said that. I was talking about actual road.
Oh, road?
Yeah.
Yeah, we typically do have a slide, just due to the number of projects we have, we didn't get the number of how many roads we touched this year.
Yeah.
But we do normally keep track of how many roads and percentage of roadways that we get touched.
Yeah, like miles of road, I think you said last year you had that, so I was just, looking
Yeah,
for that
I
number.
apologize.
Because I like to see, kind of where we are, how much is an average, kind of.
We'll have it for the budget narrative.
Okay.
Miles of road got touched.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm trying to get departments to do more of, and Mike, Director Guerra is ahead of some departments, partially because his department lends itself to this, is to get key performance indicators in every department in the budget so that we can show what we're doing and that we can give you and the public, the people who slog through our budget, an idea of what we are accomplishing. So
It also helps, because costs go up, the cost per dollar per mile kind of goes up. It's a little bit easier to explain to people.
and not just the how much measures like what you're talking about, but that red, green, yellow spectrum to show, we hope, that keeps getting greener and greener as we go along, as we catch up with roads and show how well we do things, not just how much.
Much you do that, yeah.
I don't want to give you the doomsday numbers that we're seeing in construction. I don't want to end on a sad note.
Stefano.
Thank you. I do have a question about the sewer reimbursement program that you touched on. Are there any county or state grants that are used to budget that, or no?
For the sewer reimbursement program internally, no.
Okay.
I can double check. I don't know any, familiar with any off the top of my head, but
Sure.
it's something we can look into, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the number that we're providing compared to other cities near us may be on the low side, according to some people. So it's something that we should probably have a discussion about at one point.
Maybe next meeting.
That seems like a good idea.
Yeah, following up on stuff we did back in May, and we really, that's something we're going to approach. And I think if there is money, it's usually for an individual, and I think some of it's needs based, but I don't know. We can find out more for you about other assistance.
Correct. Maybe what you're referring to is sometimes with HUD, they would have some of those, but we're not an entitlement community, so all that would have to go through the county.
Just going on to what Trustee Kumar was talking about, it does seem like we just have a disparity. And so I was wondering if other municipalities were getting assistance from county or state on that.
I will look into some of the HUDs and the offers that the county has for that.
And also, I think the disparity, the time they set the limit is very different from the time now, which we found all costs have gone up. So people are finding that disparity more difficult than probably in the past.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks, Mike.
Circling back to 4?
Yes.
2032.
Good. Thank you.
I was giving you the answer for a different TIF, sorry.
Yeah, okay. No problem. Thank you. Thanks for checking. Okay, Next, public comments. Any public comments on our budget summary?
First of all, I'd like to thank the board for allowing the public comments after we heard what was going on. I just have one concern about the TIF 3. Eventually, as you're talking about, you're raising the budget on, are we raising it because we're getting business money coming in? Because I don't know if this board realizes, we got in real big debt with the TIF 3 North Avenue thing when businesses started folding up and the village ended up with a big debt on that. I would hate to see that happen again. So you're talking about adding money to that TIF 3 budget. Are we got it secured enough that we're not going to see that happen again? The other thing is I'd like to thank the board for taking into consideration that maybe the rec center in the future or in 2025 budget, I don't know if it's this budget, gets a line item of their self, because you've got presentations provided to you that we may have sponsors or funding, and I'd like to see that hopefully eventually be self-sufficient with the membership amount you're talking about and sponsors coming in, that would be a line item in the budget by itself instead of just under rec by itself, that it would, like doing the pool. And the 1% coming in effect is supposed to be used for both the rec center and the pool. It would be nice to see when the rec center does become efficient, hopefully, that 1% will move into a line item for the pool, to look forward to that happening in the future for the people that would like their new pool or better pool, that it gets put somewhere in the budget in the future, maybe not this year, but that the line item gets put through. And I'm glad to see that when you put in that budget that the pool was made separately so people can see that now. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl. Okay.
I can't take any credit for that.
Okay. Since there are no other public here, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn from our committee of the whole meeting here and go into executive session for the purpose of 5 ILCS 120/25, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired, and 6, the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body. And do we have a motion? Trustee Cordova, do we have a second? Trustee Kumar? Clerk Kornecki, roll call, please.
Okay,
So this we will adjourn from this meeting and then go into executive session.
Okay, Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Alfano?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
Trustee Cordova?
Yes.
President Casone?
Yes. Okay, we will be back here next Monday, October 23rd for our regular board meeting. We will see everyone then. Have a good week.